by any means necessary, you better dig this podcast.
Yeah. By any means necessary.
By any means necessary. Fun fact. By any means necessary, you dig, and show enough are
the
phrases
like,
that are like in
credits.
always in his credits.
Yeah.
Maybe not an old boy.
Yeah.
I think the original Old Boy credit sequence was supposed to be like that, and then they switched it over to be less Spike Lee.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so...
I was reading on his wiki page that apparently Old Boy is the only one that's not, like, a Spike Lee joint, because they basically, like, went behind his back and changed it in the post-production process to make it look more like an orthodox film. But, yeah. Oh.
We demand the Spike Lee cut. Release the Lee cut.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen either version of that movie, so I can't speak volumes. Oh yeah,
you should.
I know. I'm thinking about watching both of them this week. I've been in a more movie mood this week, so
nice.
Yes.
Me too. I watched a lot of Spike Lee movies. I wanted to watch some more that we didn't have planned, but I only got around to watching. I just finished, I think it's called She's Gotta Have It, which was his first, it wasn't his, like, first movie, but it was, like, his first, like, feature length. Like, he made two or three student films that were, like, full length or, like, an hour, but that was, like, his first movie, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, I watched that one last night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
Yeah, it wasn't, like, amazing, but,
I really
like the main character. She was actually, like, pretty solid. I thought it was going to be pretty iffy going into it. I'm like, this is going to be bad. But, yeah. I liked it.
I knew about, like, the thing that happens at the end, and I was like, oh god, which one of them is going to do it? Like, the whole fucking movie. Yeah. I called it. I knew it was going to be that guy. I was like, this guy is too... Well, I'm not going to spoil it, but...
It wasn't as, like, scary as I thought it would be. Because I also know about that part.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a little bit more extreme, but thankfully it was a pretty quick scene.
Man, Spike Lee's character's name in that is Mars Blackman or something like that.
Yeah.
What a great name.
I was reading on his wiki page. I don't know if they made it, but I know that he was approached to do, like, some Nike commercials with, like... Or maybe not Nike. It might have been...
I'm pretty sure,
let me see.
For Air Jordans, right?
Air Jordans, yeah, that's what it was. He was supposed to do some commercials as, like, that character. But, yeah. I find it funny. I like that character. He was... pretty funny. I like how he repeated stuff a lot. But that is irrelevant to any of the stuff from today's movies.
Here you go. You can have a live reaction. You can watch the 1991 Spike Lee Nike commercial.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure there was a couple, but that's the only one I could find. Spike Lee's characters, you know, what I will say is I'm pretty happy that Spike Lee, when he makes himself into a character, he's not just, like, a really good person in it, or, like, he's just kind of a weirdo in the movies. Yeah. Like he is in, like, he's a weirdo and She's Gotta Have It, but he's also, like, not a great dude and Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, he's pretty passive through most of the movie. But yeah, so today we're covering Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, He Got Game, Bamboozled, and Da 5 Bloods.
Just came out like 3 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
We're going to be switching up the format a little more, covering less of like just the scene for scene and more of how we felt on the movies and like the thematic similarities between his directing style, stuff like that. We're going to try to just not be hitting the movie note for note, because if you watch the movie, that's boring.
Yes.
Unless it's just like, I love rewatching movies in my head.
Yeah. And it should make episodes a bit shorter in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure this one will still probably be like decent length because we're covering.
It just won't be 5 hours like the Paul Thomas Anderson one.
Yeah. Oh man, that was
that was an endeavor.
Yeah, I just remember sweating for 5 hours.
I was sweating, and I can feel myself, like, I know I'm going to start sweating in, like, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
I have to turn my fan off for these episodes, and there was an episode recently where, we had to take a break partway through. I don't remember what it was, but I realized for, like, the last, 10 minutes we were talking, I had the fan on because I forgot to turn it off after the break, and it was like, oh, damn it. But I'll try not to make that mistake in the future.
Did you get a chance to watch anything else this week besides Mr. Spike Lee?
I watched one of the One Piece movies. Let me check my letterbox. I might have watched something else, but I don't recall off the top of my head. Actually, no. I think that was it.
Any good?
It was okay. It's pretty. It feels like they just took elements from the first 4 arcs and kind of blended it together into this narrative. I would say it's a decent starting place if anyone's oh, you know,
I don't want to watch the first 4 arcs.
Yeah, well, it doesn't adapt the first 4 arcs, but it kind of takes elements from them and kind of remixes it into its own little thing. I would say oh, you know, check it out, but I feel like it's mostly just kind of it doesn't tap into any of the kind of deeper things that I think makes One Piece great. It's just kind of the surface level oh, you know, we're a big pirate shonen in a wacky world kind of deal, without kind of diving into any of the characters motivations or what drives them, and the kind of obviously you can't really get the scope of the world building at that point in the series, but that's one of the things I really like about One Piece. But yeah, it was okay. As a hardcore One Piece fan, I thought it was okay. So it had some decent moments, but I wouldn't say it's a major must watch for anyone. But
okay, yeah. Good to know, because you know I'm a very big fan of One Piece, so
yes.
I need to know what to watch.
It's slow coming, but I'm still working on a One Piece. Instead of doing one video, I'm kind of prepping to do a bunch of weekly reviews for the 27 movies and specials that the series has. So
cool. So you can watch that in 4 days. Just kidding.
Maybe. But yeah. So.
I watched a couple other things. I watched Tangled for the first time, which you can go watch our commentary track, man. PR's commentary track on the channel now. We can watch number 3.
What'd you think?
I thought it was alright. I enjoyed it, but, it was probably one of the more generic Disney movies, in my opinion. And I don't think, any Disney movies, or most of them are, amazing and original. But Tangled was just, really generic. I like Flynn Rider fine, and most of the animation is aged really well for being 10 years old. But, the music wasn't really doing it for me. Actually, I'll say this. The music itself, the backing orchestras and stuff, was great. I just didn't like most of the lyrics. I thought most of the lyrics were pretty bad.
I feel it.
Which is sad, because I really like Disney musicals usually. So it's just what the fuck?
The only song that I can even like remember from that movie is the "I Have a Dream" song, in like the tavern.
Yeah, I hate that song.
Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind. So the rest of them,
the one that they did in the boat, "At last I see the that's a good song. That's a good song. The rest I just wasn't feeling.
Okay.
But I overall still enjoyed it. It just wasn't special, and I probably will never watch it again. At least I never really want to.
I feel it.
I did also watch, because Tangled got its own animated show 7 years after its release on, I believe, Disney XD.
Oh.
And it has a really dumb animation style that's obviously like... It's like this bad 2D animation. It just kind of looks like a Flash animation.
Oh, okay.
They did it for the Big Hero 6 show as well. But there was an hour-long like movie that was supposed to serve as like the pilot. So we watched that, and that was actively awful.
Do you feel obligated to watch the entire series now?
No, fuck that. That's 3 seasons. It's like 63 episodes. I'm like, no.
Ooh, yeah. That sounds... pretty bad.
Yeah, that wasn't great. However, speaking of Disney, because it did buy the rights to it, Hamilton did come out 2 days ago.
Yes, I
watched
a lot of
that
people
the minute it came out. And that was great. I'm a fan of Hamilton.
Yeah, I don't have an active Disney Plus membership, so I shall wait.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's a very good pro shot. It's not. I don't think it's as good of a pro shot as like the fucking Frankenstein we watched. That was great. But it's good. It's a good pro shot. I think everything should have a good pro shot.
I agree.
And then, mostly... so Bamboozled was the first Spike Lee movie I watched out of the 5 we were covering. And... which was a really weird place to start, because I feel like I should have watched it last. Because I'm like... I feel like a lot of it is, like... a critique not only on, like, society, but also on his own fucking movies.
Yeah, I could feel that. It was kind of like the middle of the road for me. I watched it. The order I watched them in was kind of weird, because I watched Do the Right Thing, He Got Game, Bamboozled, Da 5 Bloods, then Malcolm X.
I did Bamboozled, He Got Game, Do the Right Thing, Da 5 Bloods, Malcolm X.
Oh, okay.
I had a feeling that Malcolm X was gonna be my favorite, so I'm like, I'll save this one for last. Because I'm a fan of Malcolm X as the man, so I'm like,
yeah.
Plus, I also wanted to save it because it was really fucking long.
Yes, that was. But I had seen it before, and it is very fucking long. So that was kind of my reasoning behind saving it for last.
But I did, after watching Bamboozled, I was reading up about it. And on the Wikipedia page, there was like a see also, or like related viewings, and it was talking about this movie, this documentary, Ethnic Notions, which is like an hour-long documentary about like the history of blackface and like stereotypes and stuff. So I watched that. That was fantastic. It's a great watch. It's really fucking hard to watch though, also.
Yeah,
just because it's like, oof.
Yeah, Bamboozled was hard enough to fucking watch. Yeah.
Bamboozled was maybe the most uncomfortable film. Like, there are parts of every other one, but it's just like, Bamboozled is just like, now here's 30 people in blackface. And I'm like, run!
Yeah. And, oh man. Oh. The fucking production on that one as well is, you can tell that the studios weren't, like, jumping at the gun to make that movie.
Spike Lee's like, fuck it, I'll make it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then that's pretty much all I watched. There's a new anime movie called A Whisker Away that came out on Netflix recently. I watched that. It was okay. I like anime, but The main characters fucking sucked in that movie. Oh, and I watched Wrinkles the Clown, which is a documentary that came out last year.
I am not familiar.
Do you remember the big clown craze that went on a couple of years ago where they're like, clowns they're scaring people?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about that. It's pretty much about the inciting stuff that happened. Okay. It's dumb, though. As a documentary, it just isn't very well crafted. And the first half is just kind of boring. Second half's better, but not by much.
Huh.
Yeah, but that's about what I've been up to this weekaroo. Obviously, I've been working again, walking a lot. I've been trying to walk every day, 5 miles a day, lose some weight. Yeah, I've kept up for two weeks now, 5 miles a day. Let's see how long I can keep this up.
Yeah, just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop once, or else
I have an app, and it says like, "Hey, good job, you did it," and things that say "good job" to me. That's how I keep things up. I'm like, "Oh fuck yeah!" I'm getting awards. I'm getting like, "Yo, you did 13 days in a row." I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" Man.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can see how that would set off like the little serotonin thing in your brain. Just like, oh yeah, that makes me feel good. But yeah, any questions this week?
We do have some questions from Pierre. He just sent them in 13 minutes ago.
Oh,
he probably was like, I walked out there right as he was waking up to grab my microphone because I left it out there when we recorded Ween Watch. And he probably just sent it like right afterwards.
I see.
All right, question number 1. I really want you to think about this. You have the power to completely erase any piece of media, film, show, book, etc., from existence. What do you erase?
Oh, fuck. That's a stumper right there. Let me think about that. Any film, any piece of media. I want to get rid of Birth of a Nation.
That's what my pick was going to be. And it's not just... I haven't seen Birth of a Nation. Eventually, I do want to watch it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I feel like that being such a pivotal movie for filmmaking history and how deeply ingrained the racism is in that movie and the book it's based off of, I just feel like it's led to a really bad things. And I feel like if we just got rid of it, maybe the thing that would take its place would be much better.
Oh yeah, no, that movie is fucking almost completely responsible for the rebirth of the KKK in the early 20th century.
I feel like any other movie coming out,
Woodrow Wilson had helped a lot, and he's even quoted in the film, and he screened it at the White House. But it's
he screened it at the White House, and he's like, "This is a piece of history, right? The history rewritten on the silver screen," or something like that.
Historian.
Fuck you, Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy.
But yeah, we have the exact same answer.
Yeah, so
either that or the Bee Movie. I'm tired of seeing Bee Movie memes everywhere.
Yeah, if I had to pick an alternate one, it would be the Brown Bunny. I don't like that movie.
You really don't like that movie. I should pick that movie.
If you pick it, you gotta pick Buffalo 66 beside it, because I want to do an episode comparing the two at some point. But, yeah, so...
Alright, question number 2. Do you like Spider-Man when he had 6 arms?
I do. I like most forms of Spider-Man. I think that the 6-armed Spider-Man is a pretty good one. I think the version I'm most familiar with where he has the 6 arms is from the old 90s animated series where he is kind of becoming more mutated and more spider-like as he just continues on, like, his just mutation is mutating over time, and he has to kind of, like, rush.
My mutation is mutating, oh no!
Yeah, so he's like, oh no, I gotta find a way to stop this. So if he wasn't actively fighting his mutant spider inner demons at that point, I feel like he could have gotten a lot of stuff done with those extra forearms. But yeah.
Yeah, I am also a fan. I'm not super familiar with it. I think I've read the first comic where, like, he gets the 6 arms, but not, like, that entire saga. I would like to read more, though, so... Okay, and final question. Would you rather have the ability to read David Lynch's mind or see whatever he is currently doing?
I think that... Oh, man, those are both, like... Just
you can watch David Lynch poop.
Like, I feel like both of these are just, like, insane breaches of privacy. I guess probably just see what he's doing, because I feel like that's less an invasion of his space than, like, reading his own, like, personal thoughts.
But then you can know what kind of weird fucking kinks David Lynch has.
I feel like there are some things better left for mysteries.
I feel it. Yeah, I'd probably also just want to see what he's up to, so I can be like, wow, he's watching a movie on his telephone.
Yeah, it'd be like being John Malkovich, except it's David Lynch.
Being David Lynch. That'd be epic.
That would be epic.
Alright, thank you for the questions once again, Pierre. And, like always, fuck you. So today, we're talking about Spike Lee. Let's talk a little bit about him as a guy. I believe his birth name was fucking Sheldon or some shit.
Yeah, it's Shelton Jackson Lee.
Yeah, and I noticed, when I was watching She's Gotta Have It, he lists himself as the producer of the movie with his, like, birth name. Like, there's one slide right at the beginning that's, like, produced by Shelton J. Lee. And then right afterwards it says, directed by Spike Lee. And I'm like, what the fuck, Spike Lee?
Interesting.
Which was pretty funny thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was born in 1957, way back in the day, in Atlanta, Georgia. His mother was a teacher of the arts and of black literature, and his father was a musician and a composer, which I think both of those things really helped form him into the type of director he is.
Yeah.
Because, like, he uses music in his movies, like, a lot, and it's, like, an important part of it.
For his first few films, his dad actually does the score.
Oh, shit. That I didn't know.
Yeah, apparently... through my interviews with him, there's a couple things I noticed that weren't on the wiki page while I was going through it. Him and his father had, like, some sort of, like, falling out at some point. He said about his father that he was really good at playing music, but he was really bad at making money. So he kind of, like, wanted to be the opposite of that. So, like, Spike Lee focused very much on, like, the business side of film as well. Because he believed that, like, talent couldn't get you there by itself.
Solely, yeah.
And they had, like, some sort of falling out. With the interview I was listening to, he didn't, like, dive too deep into specifics about what it was, but he said that they were kind of, like, talking it out. And that was, like, years ago, so I'm sure they probably got back to a level where they could, like, communicate decently with each other. But
good. I remember seeing his father. He is in She's Gotta Have It.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he's the older guy who's like, yeah, I wrote this song for her.
That makes sense.
And then later on, like, during the credits, they're like, right before the credits, they're like, oh, they had little, like, scenes with everybody being like, hey, man, how's it going? And I saw Bill Lee, and I'm like, that's Spike Lee's dad!
But, as a kid, he doesn't remember Malcolm X's assassination, but he says that he he was old enough that he remembers, like, hearing his mom, like, scream that they killed him from, like, on the porch down the road while he was, like, playing as a kid. And he kind of grew up and, like, read Malcolm X's autobiography that he did with the writer of Roots, Alex Haley. He read that and kind of became, like, a huge Malcolm fan, obviously, and...
yeah, me too. No, I haven't read the autobiography yet, but me too.
Yeah, I haven't read the autobiography. I plan on reading it, though, because I want to check it out, but...
interesting fellow.
Yes, to say the least, but, yeah, so those are two things that I felt like were pretty important, but, like, kind of left off this page. So, but, yeah, his dad was a jazz musician. Let's see.
His mother gave him the nickname Spike.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm keeping it. This is my name now.
Yeah, apparently it's, like, what most people, like, just grew up calling him, like it was a nickname that stuck. Apparently she gave him that name because he was difficult, but...
Got him!
Yeah. But yeah, he attended high school in Brooklyn. He enrolled in Morehouse College, a historically black college, where he made his first student film, Last Hustle in Brooklyn.
Man, I was trying to find stuff about that, and I just couldn't find anything, really.
I feel that. I a few months ago, or I guess probably like a year ago or so, when I had watched Malcolm X for the first time, I was looking for that film he did, the Four Little Girls, but I couldn't find like anything about that movie anywhere. I was just, where is it? I want to watch it. But, yeah, so... yeah, he took film courses at Clark Atlanta University and graduated with a bachelor's...
It's on Hulu!
Huh?
It's on Hulu!
The Four Little Girls?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I don't think it was when I looked, but...
got him.
Damn, I'll have to check that out now. But he graduated with a BA in Mass Communication from Morehouse, and he did graduate work at New York University's Tisch School of Arts, where he earned a Master of Fine Arts in Film and Television.
Oh, just kidding. You need the HBO Max add-on for Hulu. It's on HBO. It's around, though.
Damn.
Got him.
Yeah. But,
did you see the thing where he fucking sued Spike TV?
yes, and I thought
he's like, I'm too famous. You cannot use my name.
And it's like, okay, chill out there, Spike. Like, let's not pretend like you're the only, like, the person that invented Spike. But, that's, like, the one major disagreement I had with him when I was, like, going through his page. I'm like, what the fuck? Spike, what are you doing? But, yeah, so... let's see. 85, he began work on his first feature film, She's Gotta Have It, with a budget of $175,000. He shot the film in 2 weeks. When he released it in 86, it grossed over $7 billion at the U.S. box office. Then he did School Days, which I haven't seen. Then he did Do the Right Thing, which was nominated for...
I have seen.
Yes, I have seen that one now. Which was nominated for an Academy Award for the Best Original Screenplay. And, yeah, it didn't get it, though. Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture that year.
Bruh.
Yeah, because years later, that's the movie everyone's still talking about.
Yeah, they're like, Morgan Freeman drives the car.
Oh, man.
We should watch that.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to. I've never read it or seen it, or
we should
I know
watch
it's
that
like a
and
famous
Green
story. What was that?
We should watch that and Green Book.
Ah, yes, truly, duo of films that deserved the award that year. But yeah,
In 93, a couple years later, he would go on to marry an attorney, Tanya Lewis. They had 2 kids together.
Satchel and Jackson.
Jackson's our same age.
Oh, really? Weird. That's
Jackson
weird
was born in 97, yeah. Hey, Jackson Lee, what's up, man?
Yo. But, let's see. Yeah, so... Yeah, basically, it's just... It doesn't, like, dive too much. It's just kind of like, oh, he did this. I know with his 1990 release, Mo Better Blues, he was accused of anti-Semitism by the Anti-Defamation League and several film critics. I haven't seen the movie. I can't comment on if I think it's got, like, an anti-Semitic subtext to it or not. But basically, Lee denied the charge, explaining that that he wrote those characters in order to depict how black artists struggled against exploitation. Lee said that Lou Wasserman, Sidney Sheinberg, or Tom Pollock, sorry if I fucking executed any of those names poorly, the Jewish heads of the MCA and Universal Studios were artists struggled against exploitation. Oh, fuck me, I read that wrong. Were unlikely to allow anti-Semitic content in their films that they produced. He said he could not make an anti-Semitic film because Jews run Hollywood and, quote, that's a fact, unquote. Yeah.
So close.
Huh?
So close to not saying something dumb.
Yes. Very close. But yeah, so... Yeah, he's pretty much just been making movies. He's made... Let me see. Let me go down.
I want to say like 30?
Yeah.
25? Something like that?
He was making one every year for a decent while, but he still makes one about like every 2 years or so.
Yeah, he's kind of eased up. He's like, I want to go take a nap.
Yeah. One of the things from the interviews that I heard that really struck a chord with me is he said that he had like read a quote from Kurosawa from when he was like 80 years old, and Kurosawa said like, despite like all my experience and my age, like there's still like so much about cinema that is like in the unknown that is to be discovered, and Spike Lee like really resonated with that. So he's like, I just want to make as many movies as I can and keep learning from them. So,
well, he's just got to follow after the footsteps of like Takashi Miike and just make like 3 movies a year or whatever.
Yeah. Surely the method for success.
Surely. Did you see the thing that he said about the NRA guy?
Oh, yeah, Charlton Heston.
So Charlton Heston was the president of the NRA at the time.
Yeah.
And he was at cons or something. Spike Lee was at cons or something, and he's like, I think they were specifically talking about like shootings in America or something, and he's like, you know what, the NRA should be disbanded and somebody should shoot Charlton Heston with a .44 Bulldog.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? And he's like, no, I was just kidding. When he got backlash on that. I'm like, no, he wasn't.
Even if you feel that way, maybe it's not the best thing for the public image, but...
Maybe not.
Yes, yeah, so he is a man of many controversies, described as the angry black activist director, but...
Which a lot of this, so this just goes on to, like, my problem with a lot of, like, America is, like...
Yeah.
A lot of what he says, like, most of his activist stuff, shouldn't be, like, controversial, yet it is.
Yeah.
Because he's, like, black, and, like, he has said stuff, but... Like, the Jewish comment was pretty fucked, but, like, there are a lot of things that I'm like, this shouldn't be a controversy. A lot of there was a decent amount of controversy that came out of, like, Do the Right Thing when that came out.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? Did you miss the point of the movie?
Yeah, a lot of people thought it would invoke riots, and it's just
and he's like, when people go to watch Rambo, they don't come out fucking shooting other people.
Yeah, in one of the interviews I was watching, there was a point. I think I don't remember the question verbatim, but he was basically asked, it's like, do you ever plan on making any movies that don't focus on the black struggle? He's like, well, see, no one like Woody Allen would ever be asked this question. It's only me, a black director, who has asked this question. No one asks Akira Kurosawa if he's gonna make films that don't focus on Japanese people, or if Woody Allen's not gonna make a movie that focuses on Jewish people, or this and that. And it's just I feel like he's got kind of a point there. I feel like black culture. No,
it was exactly when Jordan Peele said that there was a big controversy when Jordan Peele's I don't really see myself casting any non-black people as the leads in my films, and I'm like, that shouldn't be controversial. If that's fine to do, good. A lot of black people don't get work. That's good. He wants to make movies about the black experience.
Yeah. And it's clearly, there is a certain middle ground when it comes to making things where it's you can have colorblind directors and stuff, but if it deals with a certain subject matter, there's an appropriate filmmaker for the subject.
But what's so weird about that as well is Spike Lee has made movies that predominantly feature white people. Josh Brolin is the main character in Oldboy.
Yeah.
And Edward Norton is the main character in 25th Hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not he's exclusively making these.
But if most of his movies are themed around race relations and colorism in the black community, it makes no sense to feature a lot of white people.
Exactly. And when it came to Malcolm X, jumping ahead a bit here, but I feel like it relates to this topic.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically, originally it was slated to have a white director, the guy who directed In the Heat of Night. I forget his name off the top of my head. I think I wrote it in my notes. Let me look.
Norman Jewison.
Yes.
Moonstruck, Fiddler on the Roof, Jesus Christ Superstar Man.
Yes. But basically, he stepped down from the project because, quote, he didn't like the script. But there was a lot of protest and a lot of just speaking out at the time where it's no, the Malcolm X biopic should be directed by a black director. And Spike Lee went on to say because I was watching the interview specifically about this film, and he was talking about how just on a different level, besides just the kind of symbology of it, he had to go and interview people who knew Malcolm X, and he said these people wouldn't open up to just some white guy who comes sniffing around asking about it. It needed to be someone from their community who goes and talks to them.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Yeah. And it's that makes perfect sense to me. It's yeah, clearly. The subject matter called for a black director. But yes. Apparently another obstacle that film had to overcome was the budget and the runtime.
I fucking figured. I'm I feel most fucking productions are no, we're not gonna let you have a 3.5 hour long movie.
Yeah, he had to fight for that one. So basically, he wanted to get a big budget for the film, but they were no, we'll give you this smaller budget. So he basically took advice from Francis Ford Coppola and basically made the film and went over budget. And then he got it to crawl up from 28 to 33 million, and then he put in 2 million of his own money that he was making from the film, because he was only getting 3 million from the project. And then the studio and the Bond company were basically like, all right, the film can't be over 2 hours and 15 minutes. And he's like, that led to the film shutting down for a while during post-production. But donations from a bunch of, like, prominent black Americans, like, donated, like, Oprah, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Janet Jackson, Prince, Tracy Chapman, Peggy Cooper, and Bill Cosby all, like, donated to make the film happen. So that,
oh,
that
thank
was,
God. Bill Cosby, thank God.
Yeah, of course. But, yeah, so that was cool of them to do. Like, I'm glad that they kind of saw the importance of the film and donated to it to make sure it was released in, like, the way that it should have been. But yeah, so with that, do you want to hop into Do the Right Thing?
There was one... Yeah, I have some more notes about his filmmaking style as in general, but I probably want to talk about that after we finish all the movies.
Okay.
Yeah, so, like I said, we're going to talk about Do the Right Thing. We're just going to talk very briefly about, like, the overall arcing story, because it's a very simple story as well. Like, it's...
It's mostly, so like, kind of like vignettes within, like, this neighborhood throughout, like, the course of the day.
In something.
Yes. They're all building up to something.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, watching these 5 Spike Lee movies is, like, the most I think I've ever heard the N-word in a condensed period of time.
I don't know. Have you ever watched 5 Quentin Tarantino movies back to back?
I haven't. That might do it. But I feel like not every Quentin Tarantino movie has it all the time. Just like Django really, like, ups the ante.
Yeah, there's a few of them that use it quite
liberally there.
Yes. And that's one of... They're, like, Spike Lee actually got into this bit of a feud with Quentin Tarantino over it. Understandably.
Yeah, I don't really think... Like, I think it's understandable in Django, I guess, but some of them are like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And it'd be like, if I was, as an actor, like, if I was in a movie by a black director and they wanted me to say the N-word, I feel like I'd be okay with doing that, because it's, like, a black director saying. But if somebody that looks like Quentin Tarantino was like, now I need you to say the N-word 95 times, I'd be like, I'd have to take a pause there.
Yeah, it's like, did I sign on to the right project?
Yeah.
But
all right, so Do the Right Thing.
Yeah. So
takes place in
Brooklyn, doesn't it?
Brooklyn, yeah. I assume a lot of the fucking movies he makes takes place in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So we follow our it's a big, like, ensemble cast, but for the most part
pretty much we're looking at Mookie, who's played by Spike Lee.
Yes, and he's basically
working at a pizza shop.
Yeah, he works as a delivery boy for this, like, Italian-owned pizza place in the neighborhood. Working there is Sal and his 2 sons, Vito and Pino. Is that their names? Yeah,
and Pino's played by John Turturro. And
yes.
God, John Turturro plays a scumbag in this movie really good.
And Vito is played by the dude from that Stranger Than Paradise.
Oh, is that Richard Edson? Is that what he's from?
Yeah, the first half of the movie, I'm like, where is this guy? Like, I know this guy.
Okay, because he's not in it. Like, he's been in a decent amount of movies, but, like, he isn't, like, a ton. Like, he's not the major vocal point in most of those movies.
Yeah. He plays kind of like a similar-esque kind of character. Like, they both kind of have, like, similar ways they carry themselves.
He's in Howard the Duck.
He's in what?
He's in Howard the Duck.
Oh shit, was he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie in years, so I probably don't even remember the character he plays.
Yeah, so Do the Right Thing is very simple. It's literally just it's the hottest day of summer, pretty much. Like they're in the middle of a like simmering fucking heat wave, and Mookie works at this pizza shop, and it's just him and other people. It's just how their day's pretty much going, and while like the heat is simmering, there's a bunch of like racist tensions that are also like simmering in this majority black neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because this pizza shop is owned by these Italian Americans. And one of the inciting incidents early on is Bugging Out, the character Bugging Out.
Yeah.
He's like, there are only white people on this like wall of fame in this restaurant. He's like, I think he specifically says, we want some brothers up on this wall.
Yeah. And
he's like, it's my shop. I'm only putting white people up there.
By the way, I had no idea while I was watching it that was Giancarlo Esposito. He plays like Gus on Breaking Bad. And he's in some other stuff. He's in something we watched on this, but I don't remember what the movie was that he was in. But yeah, no.
He's in King of New York.
Oh yes, that's what it was. But yeah, no, he's also in. I think he was in Malcolm X.
He's in Malcolm X.
Yeah,
I remember him in Malcolm X. He's in a decent amount of some of the early stuff. I know he's in School Days, and he's in Mo Better Blues.
I know that he was there was like a completely different cast for Defy Bloods who were like, it was like written for, but they were like all too busy. He was one of the ones that was considered for one of the roles in that movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I could actually see him as like Otis. If you remember Otis in that movie.
Yeah, Otis is the one with the daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like he would, I feel like he would embody that character pretty well.
I could see that.
Yeah, so he's like, and then they pretty much like ban him from the store, and he's like, fuck you, and then obviously throughout the movie, those tensions just rise more, and by the end of it, this guy, Radio Raheem, who walks around the neighborhood blasting Public Enemy on his boombox.
Yeah.
He goes in there with, is it just him and Bugging Out that go in there, or is there one other person with him?
I don't remember the character's name.
Smiley goes in.
The dude with the picture of Malcolm and Martin that would like, yeah. Because all three of them had like kind of run-ins with Sal earlier. Radio Raheem had gone in there earlier and he was playing his music too loud. And Sal like really freaked out at him. And earlier, the dude with the picture was trying to sell his picture of Malcolm and Martin. But the really racist son, Pino,
was like, get out of here!
Yeah, scared him off, and it's a really sad scene. I didn't like that scene. I was like, oh,
yeah,
this poor guy.
Smiley, and that character's name is just known as Smiley. He's like very obviously like mentally disabled, but most of the neighborhood is really nice to him. Mookie's usually pretty nice to him, but randomly he's like, get out of here! And I'm like, come on, man, what are you doing? But all he does is he walks around with these pictures of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King that he's hand-colored with, like, crayons or markers or something. Mm-hmm. And he tries to sell them for, like, $2 or $1. And, yeah, he randomly goes up to the store when Pino and Sal are talking, and he's like, $2! And Pino just goes out there and pretty much is like, I'll kick your ass! And then everyone in the neighborhood is like, fuck you, Pino!
Yeah.
But anyway, the final act of the film, Radio Raheem, who's a pretty nice guy to most of the people, he goes in there and they like have a standoff. They're like, we need black people on this wall. And Sal is like, turn off the fucking music. and then he pulls out his fucking baseball bat and breaks Radio Raheem's fucking stereo, and then just kind of that just lets loose everyone, and Radio Raheem like throws Sal out of the pizzeria and starts to choke him, like he's trying to. I don't even think he was trying to necessarily kill him. I think it was just in like an act of rage at that point. Yeah. But suddenly the police show up and they grab Radio Raheem and they're trying to subdue him. But because they're cops and they don't know what the fuck to do because they're dumbasses, they kill him. And then they drive off with him, just his dead body, and they had arrested bugging out. Yeah. And then there's a final standoff where Mookie and like all the black people of this neighborhood are just staring at Sal, and like tensions are obviously really, really rising. And Mookie walks over, grabs a fucking trash can and just throws it through Sal's pizzeria, and then they all just go crazy and fucking burn it down. And there's just like a giant riot. Yeah.
And then the next day he goes and to collect his money.
Yeah, he's like, give me my fucking money.
Yeah. And the film ends.
Yeah, so there are lots of like different little vignettes of the different people around the neighborhood.
Yeah. The mayor, he was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed his character. Mayor. Early on in the film, he tells Mookie to always do the right thing, which leads to the, like, big question that white people like to ask Spike Lee.
Yeah, and I'm like...
in the interviews that I was watching, even, like, newer ones, he was like, the only people to ever ask me if Mookie did the right thing are white people. And it's just like... Yeah, it's clear that they're not in tune to, like, what the film was trying to convey, or just, like, the struggles of African Americans in general.
They literally say in the movie, property is not worth a life. Like, he's like, Sal, I don't fucking care that your pizzeria burned down. Somebody died.
Yeah. It's like, you're gonna collect from the fucking insurance anyway. Like, at the end of the day, you're gonna be fine. And it was Mookie who took on the risk. He's the one who, like, lost his job and has to, like, just basically, like, continue scraping along with what he can get, you know, because he was already at the bottom of the barrel making, like...
Yeah, he was making $250 a week.
Yeah. And it's like, he's got a wife and kid to take care of, and it's like... Yeah. But, yeah, so... Obviously, like, tensions are building in the town. It's a pretty, like, it's predominantly black, but it's a multicultural, like, neighborhood. There are like, Latinos. There's one white guy who's, like, there.
He bought a building to, like, be a landlord. And they're like, well, I thought it was a free country.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck. Man, I hated that guy. I'm like, kill him.
Yeah. The police show up. There's like, you know, even though it's like a predominantly black neighborhood, like none of the black people there like own any businesses. Like we see the two examples being like the Italian-owned pizzeria and the Korean-owned like corner store. And it's like
that there's a standoff because the corner store is literally right across the street from the pizzeria. Yeah. And there's like a standoff between the black people. Mostly it's the older black gentlemen that are like, you see earlier on who are like, they hate Radio Raheem's music as well. They're like, turn that shit off. Turn on something better. But they're like one of them's about to like go in there, and the Korean guy's like, no, I'm black too. And they're like, what? But, you know, it's obviously just to be like, we're the minority here too. We're being oppressed as well. Don't fucking destroy my store.
Yeah.
And they don't. And I'm like, good.
Yeah. I was glad they got off. Because they kind of got the shit end of the stick throughout, like, a lot of the movie. Like, they just have, like, a lot of, like... There's a scene where, like, Radio Raheem goes in there and he's, like, kind of harassing them about, like, because they don't speak very good English, and he's kind of like a dick to them when he's buying batteries. And we see, like, the old men on the corner who are, like, the one of them is like, oh, fuck, man, I can't wait till a black business opens up in this neighborhood. I'm gonna go there. And it's like, one of them calls him out and is like, you're always talking about shit you're gonna do. Well, you know what I'm gonna go do? I'm gonna go buy a beer from that Korean corner store and give them my hard-earned money. But, yeah, so we see that throughout the neighborhood. There's a scene from Radio Raheem that I like earlier on where he first like kind of like meets up with Mookie. He's like passing by him while he's delivering a pizza, and he kind of like shows him he's got like these I don't know what you'd call them, like kind of like knuckle wearings. One says love and one says hate, and he kind of gives this speech where he's like, you know, the left hand. I think it's the left hand that he was using for hate. Or it might have been the right hand that he was using for
the right hand, I believe. Yes. Yeah.
So he's like, the right hand. This is the hand that like Cain used to strike down Abel, and this is the hand of hatred, and this is the hand of like love. These 5 fingers will reach down into your soul, and then it's like, and the true meaning of life, and he like puts both hands and interlocks his fingers, and he's like static, And I feel like that kind of plays into the overall themes of the movie. Like, we see, like, I've heard people, like, surmise this movie up to, like, well, you either go, like, the Martin Luther King, like, route, or you go, like, the Malcolm X route about things. And it's kind of like...
Yeah, that's like, the movie literally ends on a quote by both of them.
And, we know that, like, in real life, before, like, Malcolm X was assassinated, he was moving towards, like, trying to find like a common middle ground with like Martin Luther King and like other activists to like get the common goal that they all wanted. And I feel like that's what this film is trying to like get across.
Definitely. But when the movie first ended and I saw that quote from Martin Luther King, I was a little salty. I'm like, what do you mean? That goes completely against it. But then I'm like, okay, it has another quote as well. It has 2 quotes. Okay. It's a quote from Malcolm X as well. Because I'm like, if it just included just one of those quotes, I'd be like, that doesn't really add up here.
But... yeah, and the final shot of the film is also, I think, isn't it like Smiley putting up like the picture of Martin and Malcolm like in the pizzeria
on the building that's in fire? It's not the final shot. It does cut. It cuts to there. It's like the ending, and then they do the epilogue.
Oh yes,
that's the next morning.
But yeah,
this is a strong movie. Like, I had some problems with it. I don't really like, I think that, Rosie Perez's character, Tina, is, like, really absent from the film, and I think that hurts it. Because I think the angle of Mookie being, like, he's a pretty absent father, and I thought that really added to his character, because before that he was just kind of like, I'm the pizza guy!
Yeah. It shows that because it kind of plays into, like, his just, like, kind of, like, passive nature in general. Because the whole time he's working for, like, these Italians that, he straight up knows. He's like, yeah, these are kind of racist, bigoted people. The one brother seems to be all right, but he doesn't really stand up against his other brothers.
He's also passive. I think one of the big things that this movie wants to say is, like, the right thing is action. Like, that, whatever that action is, it's doing action. Inaction is on the side of, there's that big quote that's, inaction is on the side of the oppressor. Like, not doing anything just helps keep racism and everything bad alive. You have to do something. So doing the right thing is doing something.
Yeah. I feel,
So I think that having that character of Mookie being so, like, passive throughout the whole thing really makes that ending work really well.
Yeah.
But I still wish that I think Tina was shown a little more, and I wanted him to have a little bit more character.
I feel it.
But, like, overall, really strong movie. I really like this one.
Yeah, so do I.
There's some really pretty shots too. Like a lot of just like great shots of the city and like the neighborhood. And really great characters. DeMayer, like you said, was a great character. But I also really like Smiley. I think Smiley's really well played by fucking... who fucking played Smiley? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't look up the cast. Let me
Samuel L. Jackson was in it. He played Love Daddy. I forgot about that. And he always sits in his fucking radio booth and just doesn't come out. Roger... Guinevere Smith.
Yeah.
He wasn't originally in the movie. Smiley wasn't a character, but he's like, Spike Lee, put me in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Because I think he had been in School Days, and he's like, come on, put me in the movie. He's also in King of New York. It's just everyone in this movie in King of New York as well.
Martin Lawrence was also in this movie. He didn't play like a super relevant, like, predominant character, but he had a couple scenes where you saw him like kind of around. He's in like the pizzeria, like when the big fight starts between Sal and Radio Raheem. But
there apparently the original script of this movie had like a stronger like reconciliation at the end between Mookie and Sal. And then Lee just changed it, and he's never, like, explained why he changed it. But I think that having just, like, that hint, and then they kind of walk away is a better ending. I think it's more realistic.
Yeah. No, I really liked the epilogue. It went to, like, kind of further cement. It's just like, wow, this Sal guy's kind of an asshole, because he just, like, chucks the money at Mookie's face.
Yeah, he's like, here.
He's like, yeah, this is really going to help you. $500, he's rich. But, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else about the movie that, like, I really want to say.
Let me see. I wanted to talk about... Oh, and I just think, like, in general, one of my other, like, only problems with the movie is not just Tina, but I just feel like the women in the movie in general, so Tina and fucking mother sister are the, like, main ones that are
we also
prominently
get
seen.
a little bit from his Mookie's sister.
Oh, that's right. What was her name? Was that Jade?
I think so.
It's just like, I feel like all the women in this movie are just like really one note. And it's just weird because I felt like everyone else in it had like a personality. And it's just like, why are all these women just like nothing? Which is weird because I think that the main character in She's Gotta Have It, what I can't remember her name, but I thought she had a decent amount of depth to her.
Yeah, apparently.
So it was really weird that all the women in this were just like...
Apparently, Spike Lee for that movie had interviewed like a shit ton of women. So that might have had something to do with like that.
Also, another thing, this movie is really weird with there's a random like really hardcore like sexualization scene of Rosie Perez's character that apparently made her very uncomfortable when filming.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and I don't really think it adds anything to the movie. Like, that was the big thing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Which is weird because I thought that while there were lots of sex scenes and She's Gotta Have It, that's like what the movie was about. And it doesn't really just sexualize women. It's just like, here's a man and a woman, they're both naked.
Yeah, no, that movie, She's Gotta Have It, like, I feel like it's very, like, invigorating. Like, it's very, like, you know, meant to, like, empower women and their sexuality. Yeah. But this film, it feels like it kind of, like, takes a point away from that.
Which is unfortunate, because, like, without that, I think this movie would be, like, absolutely incredible. And I really like this movie. I would say it's a great movie, but it's just, like, that really hindered my enjoyment, personally. And that view of women is, like, the only present in this movie, at least for me. Like, so it's just like, what the fuck? But I still think it's a great movie. The soundtrack is really fucking good. Public Enemy, always my jam, but also the score when Public Enemy's not playing, I really liked.
Yeah, me too.
But it's because his dad made it. Doo-doo-doo.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's about all I wanted to say about this one. This one's in the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
There are 4 fucking Spike Lee movies in the Library of Congress.
Yeah, I know Malcolm X is in there. What are the,
Malcolm X, She's Gotta Have It, actually, his first movie.
Oh.
And, I believe Four Little Girls, or whatever it's called.
Okay.
I think that's the one. Let me make sure, though.
They should put Bamboozled in the Library of Congress.
I kind of unironically agree. Yeah. 4 Little Girls. What would you give this movie, Thomas?
I would give it a 9. I think it's really strong for the most part. I feel like it has a lot of characters in it, and it does a very good job at balancing it for the most part. It's got its couple things that I don't particularly like about it. Like, I don't like the sexualization of that character either. And, yeah, that's probably the major complaint. That and the women writing in this film in general. But yeah, I would probably give it a 9.
I'm gonna give this one an 8. It's a pretty high 8. It was almost a 9, but I felt like this movie should have been a little longer the way they wanted it to portray all the different people around the neighborhood. And I felt like it was pretty much the length that was keeping some of these characters from being more than just one dimension. And also that sexualization scene really bothered me. But I really liked this movie. I feel like it might be a 9 my second watch. I was kind of tired when I was watching this. I've been really tired lately. But I did still really like this movie. And I think it's a movie that everyone should see.
Yes.
Actually, quite a lot of the movies we're talking about today, I'm like, people should watch this movie.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
Right,
so 8.5, pretty good.
Yeah. All right.
What's next? Is that Malcolm X?
It's Malcolm X.
Yeehaw! So he followed up, fucking Do the Right Thing with fucking what was it called? I think it was Mo Better Blues. Then he did Jungle Fever, and then he did Malcolm X. And yeah, Malcolm X is fucking crazy good.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I thought it was fantastic. And I think that my big problem with a lot of biopics is they kind of do wide strokes in how, they want to portray the person. They'll either portray them as oh, this was the greatest guy ever, or oh, this guy sucked, or oh, this guy was damaged. Instead of just being yeah, this person was a nuanced human being.
Yeah, I feel like this film does a really good job at capturing the faults, but also, the strengths of Malcolm X.
Yeah, and I feel like, one of Malcolm X's big faults through a lot of his life was his treatment of women.
Yes.
But that's the nice thing about this movie. It never feels like... I think that there's a big deal. I talk about this a lot, with people I talk about for the James Bond movies. There's a difference between a character being, misogynistic or having poor treatment of women and the movie itself being misogynistic. And this movie, I never felt like it had a problem with its portrayal of women. It was just simply, this is what the character felt and this is what the character did.
Yeah. And it helps that there's some stronger women characters in this movie, his wife. Who eventually is the one who smacks him, or not literally smacks him, but sets him on the path for figuring out the truth of what's been kind of going on. But yes, so this film follows the, pretty much the late teen to the end of Malcolm X's life. We follow him as a young man as he, kind of hustles his way through, just kind of getting by. He, first off, we see him at a dance, he straightens his hair and he's got a girlfriend.
Puts this really heavy chemical in his hair that's I don't know what exactly it is, but it's supposed to, like, take out the curls and black hair and, like, make them closer, more similar to, like, white hair.
Mm-hmm.
Like, white person hair. And, it's fucked. And it, like, burns really badly.
Yeah. So we see
but,
him...
Yo, this first dance scene was great. I really like dancing scenes, and I really like this scene.
Yeah, we see, him, his friend, I think the name is Shorty, but it's played by Spike Lee.
Spike Lee, yeah.
And, yeah, we get this guy... I'm not a huge fan of the Shorty scene where he's, like, kind of, like, dancing away from, like, this bigger woman. I was like, oh, eh.
Yeah, but then he's just with her later on, anyway.
Yeah. But, so, basically, in this scene, we see, like, you know, it's established that he's got, like, this nice girlfriend that he's obviously got, like, something going with, but this kind of, like, this white girl kind of, like, calls him over while she's in the bathroom, and she's basically like, yo, go drop off that nice girl at home and come back, and I'll be waiting for you. So he basically drops her off at home and ends the relationship because she's not stupid. She knows what's going on. And he
starts dating that white person, pretty much.
Yeah. And then we follow him as he joins this, like, gang.
Yeah, there's this guy he meets named West Indian Archie.
Yes.
Oh, I guess he's. I don't really understand the cultural connotations of the term West Indian because he's from West Africa. He's from Grenada, I believe, or like he's in that same. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess like. I don't know. He's called West Indian Archie, but he's from, like, West Africa, which is also where Malcolm X's mother was from. She was from Grenada.
Yeah. And we also get some insight into Malcolm's early life. We see that his mother was a lighter-skinned person because her mother was raped by a white man. So she, like... there's like a line in the movie that says like she intentionally went out looking for like a darker black man to like marry and have kids with because she just kind of wanted to like, you know, get the white out of her bloodline essentially. And we see like their father was like a preacher. He was a very like kind of like strong-minded man who stood his ground and was eventually killed by the KKK. They like bashed his head in and left him on the train tracks. And yeah, his mother was then shortly after, she had the kids taken away and she was put into a mental hospital.
Yeah, so is it like, you don't see Malcolm X's like siblings ever again, pretty much? Like, you never saw them?
Yeah, they all got, like, split apart, and...
I guess at this point, he was still going by Malcolm Little as well.
Yeah. And there's, like, this scene... This scene makes me fucking sick, where, like, he's in class, and he like, points out that he's at the top of his class, and, like, one of his teachers is like, now, you say you want to be a lawyer, but... you're really not cut out for that position. You should really try to do something with that... You're good with your hands. Be a carpenter. Jesus was a carpenter, and
this teacher. Sickening. His teacher literally was like, he calls him the N-word. Yeah. And I'm like, what the? And he's like, we don't have lawyers that are.
And he tries to do it in this like kind of like calm, assuring tone, but he's just speaking to this kid, and it's just like, dude, it's so sickening. I hate that fucking scene. And he's like,
yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, and then so he meets up with this gangster, and that gangster is the West Indian Archie. He's played by fucking Delroy Lindo.
Yes.
Who we would see later on in Da 5 Bloods. Is he in any of the other ones?
Not. I don't think he was in any of the other ones we watched. He might be in other Spike Lee movies, but I'm pretty sure he was only in those two.
I've seen. He's a really good actor. I really like Lindo's performance in both this and he's like the best part of Da 5 Bloods in my opinion.
Agreed.
It looks like he's also in. Oh yeah, he's the main character in Crooklyn, which was one of like it was like the other one that I really wanted to watch, but I didn't. I chose He Got Game instead. And he's in Clockers, so yeah, he's in a decent amount of. Oh fuck! I forgot he's a character in this movie called The Cider House Rules, which has I watched it because Tobey Maguire is the main character in that. That movie's really good, and he's really good in that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but he starts working for him, but eventually they kind of make a bet together, and Archie has this thing where he's like, I never have to write down a number, I remember them all. Then he forgets this number, so then he's like, I'm going to kill you, Malcolm, you lied to me. So Malcolm runs away, and he's like, well, now I'm gonna go back and live with Shorty, pretty much.
Yeah, so basically he comes to the conclusion that he is not afraid of death at this part, so he basically just decides, he was like, well, I'm just gonna live with Shorty and our two white girlfriends, and we're gonna just do small jobs and get by, you know, fuel my coke addiction. Because he had been introduced
he picked up a coke addiction from Archie, yeah.
Yeah. So basically they meet up with this guy named Rudy, and
they start doing robberies together, but does Rudy eventually sell them out? I assume that's what happened.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the one that shows up, so, and he wasn't, like, at that trial, so.
Yeah. I imagine that's what happened, especially since, like, it was his, like, gig that he was setting up, and how, Malcolm... So basically there's this scene where, like, basically, Rudy shows up and he's like, yeah, I know this great place. There's this old guy. He has me, like, tuck him into bed every night. Loves it. Gets his rocks off. And he's loaded. We can just literally go and, like, just take shit from him. And he wants to be the, like, head of the operation. But Malcolm basically, like, kind of plays this intense game of Russian roulette with him to decide who's going to be the boss. And it turns out that he had, like, palmed the bullet, so there wasn't actually anything. But they didn't know that at the time, and it was, like, a super just, like, oh, God, scene.
Malcolm, they're like, Malcolm, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. And, yeah, so they rob this guy, and they're, like, basically, like, the next day, Malcolm's, like, putting stuff in his hair again, and they, like, I don't know if the police shut off the water or if the water just coincidentally happened to be shut off.
I assume they shut it off.
But yeah, basically he ends up having to, like, go and dip his head in a toilet, and then as he turns around, he's introduced to the fact that he's going to prison.
And Shorty's just like, the jig is up.
Yep. So
it's funny, Spike Lee always puts on this weird kind of, like, I've heard his voice and he doesn't usually sound like that, but he likes to put on this weird nasally voice a lot where he's just like, the jig is up.
Yeah, he definitely, like, exaggerates it when he's acting. He's got, like, a kind of nasally voice in general, but it's not anywhere near as animated as it is when he can
it's mostly, I mostly think of his voice is so funny and fucking She's Gotta Have It.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, baby.
He's like, did I tell you about the time that, you know, I used to be a superhero? Did I tell you?
I'm Panty Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes to prison for, he gets jailed for 8 to 10 years. He ends up, I think, getting paroled after 6. But during that time, he is introduced to this guy named Baines, who introduces him to the Nation of Islam.
Before we get into this, can we talk about that sentencing scene, though? I think it's funny because of what happens at the end of it, but it's also just truly just disgusting as well. Because basically, we see the two, like, their girlfriends who are white, and they get charged, like, they get, like, 2 years in jail or whatever. And then,
which Malcolm X explains through. There's a lot of narration by Malcolm X. He explains how 2 years is pretty much standard for first-time offenders for, like, robbery.
Yeah, and basically, then the judge then looks at, like, Malcolm and Shorty, and he lists off 11 counts of 8 to 10 years.
14 counts.
Or 14 counts, and then Shorty just faints, and he's
because he says, all to run concurrently, and Shorty doesn't know what that means, so he thinks he's going to prison for, like, 140 years.
But he ends up falling down. He's like, I later had to explain to Shorty when he woke up what concurrently means, but so he goes to jail, and immediately, he's not really dealing with he doesn't handle authority very well, so he ends up getting put in isolation for, oh god, I don't know if they like tell you directly how long, but he's put in there for like a long time. Like there's a point where they like open up the door and it's like, are you ready to read your badge number? Okay, no, another 10 days, and they shut it.
I think usually isolation is it's between 10 and 30 days, I believe. So, and he's in there I'm guessing he's in there for about a month.
Yeah. But he finally gets out, and this man named Baines comes up, and he's with the Nation of Islam, and he basically gives them some like nutmeg and water, which is supposed to help with his like coke addiction. And he basically kind of starts lecturing him. He's like, "Yo, man, what are you doing? Like, I can tell that you're a lot smarter than this. Like, you should really be putting that brain to good use." And he's like, basically kind of like introduces him to the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. And basically, so he kind of gets more into the religion. He gets more like, there's like a scene I really like where they go and they analyze like the dictionary, and they like look at the definitions for like white and black, and basically like they kind of like look at the associated words, and it's like, oh, white is like pure, wholesome, yada yada, like things of that nature. And then like you go over to like black, and it's like evil, corrupt, like stuff like that. And it's just like, he's like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? And it's like, yeah, this is like the white man's dictionary, and you should learn it. You should learn how to read between the lines and figure this shit out for yourself. So throughout, we see that he's spending a lot more time with Baines, and he's becoming more educated. And there's like this dilemma that he's having, because he's having a problem getting down on his knees and praying to Mecca. I think that's what they do. Like they like pray in the direction of Mecca, isn't that right?
Yeah, they pray 5 times a day.
Yeah. And he has like this problem. He doesn't want to get down on his knees, but he ends up like getting a letter from Elijah Muhammad that like inspires him. Like he describes it as like this like divine moment where he like was reading the letter, and he saw like Elijah Muhammad in the room with him, and it just like bestowed upon him all this wisdom and made things clear. And from that point on, he was able to like get down on his knees and pray. And he basically gets his like bachelor's while he's in prison, and becomes very like much a free thinker. And there's like a scene where he's like kind of debating with the chaplain over like the white Jesus stereotype, and even references,
it's not true.
Yeah, references bits from the Bible where they like literally reference like, oh, they say his like feet are of like brass, and it's like, come on, you think I'm gonna believe in this white Jesus bullshit? But yeah, so he gets out, he visits Elijah Muhammad, and basically becomes like this very popular public speaker for
because
the Nation of Islam.
From the very beginning, they're like, he's a very great talker. So
yeah,
and then they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna have him do it. There you go.
So we see him do a lot of public speaking. He gets a lot of backlash for the things he's saying. He proposes ideas like complete segregation between like the black and white race. And we see him, he meets his wife for the first time. She's working for the Nation of Islam, and they kind of like start like kind of meeting together professionally. She's like, "Oh, will you come teach my class?" And they're flirting, and they eventually get to a point where he proposes to her over the phone, and she says yes, and it's like, oh, but let's see. Trying to like remember the overall like sequence of events here. This is a long movie.
Yeah. But throughout most of it from this point on is just him becoming a better public speaker. But then it gets to the point where they're like, he's becoming too powerful. That's pretty much it. They're like, he's becoming too powerful.
Yeah. So, basically, after he makes this comment during the assassination of John F. Kennedy, where he basically feels no remorse.
He's just he's like, cool.
Chickens came home to roost, you know.
Yeah, he said that the assassination. He said the assassination was pretty much the product of the white violence that's been prevalent since the founding of America. So, like, it's just kind of what was going to happen.
Yeah,
he felt no remorse. So he gets suspended by Muhammad from speaking, and so Malcolm's like, I'm going to Mecca finally.
Oh, something else that kind of feeds into the whole, like, leading up to, like, him being, like, his conflict with the Nation of Islam is we find out that Elijah Muhammad has been getting pretty busy with some of his underage secretaries.
Yep.
And basically...
One of them has a child.
Yeah. A few of them have a child. But
he have children.
Yeah, so he goes and he kind of like interviews like all of like the women who are like making these accusations, and he kind of comes to the conclusion, it's like, oh, this seems legit. And then he goes and confronts Elijah Muhammad about it himself, and he basically he admits to it, and then tries using passages from the Bible to like justify it, and it's like, oh no, don't do that. So Malcolm basically, this is like kind of the moment where he's like, oh shit, I gotta kind of figure shit out and space myself from this. But yeah, then he makes the comment about like John F. Kennedy, and that leads to him being disbanded for 90 days. And when he gets home that night, one of the members of the Nation of Islam basically comes to him. And we see this guy earlier in the movie, like he's like this guy who comes in after like one of his first like public speaking events, and is like, yo, Malcolm, I was there at the protest tonight, and that was amazing. I want to be like more like you. What can I do? I want to join this organization. And basically like Malcolm kind of like lets him in. He's like, all right, yeah, you should know more about organizations you're trying to join, but come to the service on like Monday or whatever it is. And we see like this kind of comes full circle, because he's basically like, Malcolm, like they gave me a job. They wanted me to like put explosives in your car.
Yeah, wire your car to explode.
And he's like, oh shit. And he's like, but I'm on your side. So we see like he's got like this kind of small group of members who transitioned with him out of the Nation of Islam, and he basically starts speaking publicly again. He's like, you know, I'm going to separate myself from the members of the Nation of Islam. Like, I'm just, you know, I've been a mouthpiece for them, but now I'm going to be a mouthpiece for me. And it basically, he goes to...
and then after that, he just gets death threat after death threat.
Yeah, he goes to Mecca around this point in the film, and he has like this realization while he's there, you know, because while like all under like the like hood of the religion, there are many different like nationalities there, and he is like very affected because he's like, you know, he befriends like this like small group of white people who are there, and he's like, you know, we were just brothers, we were all like just part of, you know, Islam together. And he comes back, and he basically like makes some comments to the press. He's like, okay, look, basically, like, everything before this point, I want to, like, refresh, you know. I'm hoping that, like, other, like, civil rights activists forget things I've said about them, and I'll forget things they've said about me, and I want to, like, work together towards a common goal. Meanwhile, things, like, he keeps getting, like, phone calls. We see, like, he's bugged wherever he goes. And they hint towards, like, the CIA being involved and maybe being, if not active in the plans of assassination, then complicit in, like, not putting a stop to it, even though they would have known about it. And basically, it gets to a point where, like, someone throws, like, a Molotov cocktail through his window and almost kills his children. Like, it's ridiculous. And this is, like, my... this scene in particular, I have a major gripe with this scene. I don't like that they, like, cut back to, like, the scenes of his father and, like, when he was young and his house was being attacked by the KKK. I thought it was a little too on the nose. Like, I was thinking that already before they started cutting to those shots, and it just felt like a little, like...
I personally liked it because I thought that it was a little, it blurred the lines between them really well, personally, just because, like, everything was on fire, it was hard to see who was who, so it was like, just like the very first two cuts, I'm like, wait, who is this? Is this him or his dad? So I like that scene a lot, but I also understand that it is this movie in general, it's structured like pretty much every other biopic, but I just like it so much because I think that everything in it is executed so well. And I personally like that scene, but I understand where you're coming from as well.
Yeah. But, yeah, so, basically, they're gearing up to give, like, this speech in this, it's like a dance hall, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. And, basically, Malcolm has come to the conclusion that it's like, he's gonna die here. Like, he's pretty aware of it. He realizes, like, that, like, his days have been numbered. He's been harassed and getting death threats for, like, the last year at this point, so it's like, he's just, like, kind of accepted that today is the day. He realizes this one's gonna be more dangerous. A bunch of, like, people who were, like, slated to be there, like, canceled last minute, and things are just very suspicious. I really like this one shot where he's, like, walking to the building, and it's like they do, like, you can tell that they, like, attach, like, a body cam to him, and it kind of reminds me of, like, if you've ever seen, like, Requiem for a Dream. I know that movie came out after this one, but reminds me of there's a shot where they do, like, the same thing in that movie, and I really like when movies do that, when characters are in, like, an inner state of mind where they're, like, deeply thinking about things. But basically, like, he's walking forward like this, and this woman kind of comes up to him, and she's like, you know, I appreciate what you're doing. You just keep on doing what you're doing, and don't let anybody, like, tell you otherwise. Jesus will protect you. And then he gets this, like, look on his face, just like, oh, brother. But, yeah, he basically goes in, he kind of, like, blows up on, his, like, crew, like, they're there, and just things aren't prepared to, like, the level that they should have been. Not really their faults, it's just kind of how things turned out. So it's just, like, he blows up on him for a second, and then he apologizes. And the one guy, like, pulls him aside, and he's like, hey, Malcolm, what's wrong? And basically Malcolm kind of admits, he's like, you know, it's a time for martyrs. And then he sends the dude out to, like, make a phone call or something down the block. And he goes out and he does his speech, and, like, immediately, like, right before he starts talking, there are some things at, like, some earlier, like, speakings he did where, like, there will be, like, someone in the back and they'll, like, shout, like, hey, man, get your hand out of my pocket. And, kind of, like, causes big, like, scene, and that happens in the scene. Someone, like, gets up and is like, hey, man, get your hand out of my pocket. And then, like, they start throwing smoke bombs, and then one dude just comes up with a shotgun. shoots
fucking
Malcolm X.
Shoots him twice, and then two other guys come up and just start shooting him as well.
Yeah, one of the other guys, there's a bit earlier where, like, we see that his, like, wife and kids are there, and there's, like, a scene
One
where,
of the Thomas Hagen, he was the one that gave that, his daughter, like, a stuffed bear or something.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, here you go. And then later goes up to shoot his father. And it's just like, oh, man, what a fucked up scene. But
Thomas Hagen is still alive.
oh, is he?
Yeah, he was the one that was shot in the leg and then dragged out.
Yeah, he was played by I know his name. Yeah, he was just saying it. Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, basically shooting happens. People try to stop some of the shooters. They stop that one. They one guy shoots him in the leg, and then a bunch of people like pile on top of him. And then
they would have, if the police didn't show up, they would have fucking murdered that guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they were about to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the movie ends with there's like a clip of Martin Luther King's eulogy to Malcolm, and then there's a speech by someone, and then there's a classroom scene where it shows like a bunch of black kids like all around the world going like, I am Malcolm X. That scene's really good. I don't know what it was, but that scene got me really good.
Yeah, I like that scene. And then we see who's
and then
teaching.
Nelson Mandela is randomly delivering a speech at a school, and he's quoting an excerpt from one of Malcolm's speeches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Spike Lee had said like that like he felt like the situation over there was kind of similar to like Harlem during this like time period, and he viewed Nelson Mandela very much as like kind of like the spiritual successor to like Malcolm X in certain aspects, so he felt like that's why he had him at the end of the film. But yeah, then they go on and they talk about like kind of Malcolm X's legacy, and basically like how like white people have been like, oh, he's racist and yada yada, but then it asks like, you know, had any of these people like ever like seen Malcolm smile, heard him talk, you know, gotten to know like the human side of him. And then they go on to like give the talk about like how he would have liked to identify as like an Afro-American, and how he wishes like more people would identify that way. And yeah, I think that's where like the film ends on. But yeah, no, I think that this is probably, out of what I've seen of biopics, at least the best biopic ever made. Like,
yeah, I would probably agree. There are a lot of biopics that I do like, but like this was fucking amazing.
Yeah, I love and I hate it. It makes me anxious the whole movie, but I love how like he'll have like transitions with like gunshots.
Yeah,
it makes for like a very just like stomach churning like foreshadowing in like other scenes, and it startles me every time he fucking does it in the movie.
But I think it also wanted to highlight how prominent like just gunshots are like in like underprivileged like neighborhoods and stuff like that.
Yeah. But yeah.
There's like I said, I think that biopics usually cover like the same theme, like they are executed all very similarly, and there's not a lot in this movie that's like super out of this world in the way of making a biopic, but everything is pretty much executed flawlessly in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I really like this one.
And the supporting cast is like really, really good, even in the ones that are like just in like one scene. And I feel like the pacing in this movie is really good.
Yeah, no, it really is. Like it's a long movie, but
like it feels long, but it never feels like, I was never bored or anything. I never thought a scene wasn't worthwhile or anything like that.
Yeah. And also, because we haven't mentioned it so far, address the elephant in the room. Denzel Washington fucking kills it in this movie. Holy shit. He does such a good job.
I know that there was some people didn't want him to play him originally because, like, Malcolm X was a decent amount taller than... Malcolm X was, like, a really tall dude. He was, like, 6'4". But also he had kind of a lighter skin complexion. And Denzel Washington's pretty dark in comparison. But, no, he's fucking amazing. This, like, he's really good in... the movies that I've seen him in. Denzel Washington in general is like a fantastic actor. But fuck, he kills it in this. And his son went on to kill it in another Spike Lee movie.
Yeah.
Black Klansman's a good movie.
Yeah. No, it really is. But yeah, so I don't know if I really have anything much more to say on this one. It has a lot of like kind of, it has some of the similar themes of kind of like unity that the last one did. Like it's very much focused on like that like kind of like trying to get the two sides to work together for the common goal, but obviously it doesn't get there because it's based on a true story and it didn't quite work out the way that it should have, but... Yeah.
But, the themes are obviously gonna be there because it was about Malcolm X, but...
Yeah.
No, this movie was fucking amazing. I'm gonna give this one a 10.
I also give it a 10, so...
Easy 10 for me. Easy 10.
Yeah.
I love long movies. I love. This is like I love long movies. Just sometimes they're hard to like sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna watch a long movie. But when I sit down and like I'm like, okay, I get into it, then it's just like this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so next we're gonna be talking about
He Got Game.
He Got Game. Man, I wanted to like this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like a lot of the themes of this movie, but I feel like a lot of the acting in this is pretty rough. Outside of, I think that fucking Denzel, once again, is fantastic in this. But,
You weren't really digging Ray Allen?
I was not digging Ray Allen. I think that Ray Allen in general, because he is a professional, like, basketball player, I think that he had that physical performance down. Yeah. And there were some scenes he was really good in. I think that a lot of the scenes that he, is talking to Denzel, I think those are pretty good, but it's whenever he's speaking to, like, another character, it kind of muddles, and I think it's because he's not as strong of as an actor, and the scenes with other people, they're not too strong either. But yeah, so this movie is an American sports film by Spike Lee. This one's really, really simple premise, and I like the premise quite a bit. So Jesus Shuttlesworth is like the top ranked high school basketball player, like, in the entire country. Like, and everyone wants him. Like, it's not just, like, colleges that want to give him full rides. It's like, hey, we want you to just skip college, come straight to the NBA. And he's like, oh, I gotta figure this out on my own. And his father, who's being played by Denzel Washington, is in prison for 15 years for, murdering his wife. And he's pretty much like, he's released on parole for a week by the governor, so that the governor's like, if you convince your son to play for my alma mater, I'll like reduce your prison sentence like drastically. Yeah. So most of the movie is just Jesus being like pushed around by a bunch of different people trying, then they're like, hey, you need to go here and here and here. And he's like, let me do this.
Yeah. So,
And Denzel, like, slowly losing his mind. He's like, I don't want to go back to prison.
Yeah, so he's kind of conflicted because he's like, oh man, you know, I don't want to, like, overstep my boundaries with my son because he killed his wife, and the circumstances in which she died, you can tell were accidental, but it's still like, oh man, you were being a shitty person, and it led to this. And it's understandable that his son, like, hates his guts like he does. And the film is him kind of trying, not to, like, reconcile with, like, hey, you know, I murdered your mom, but, like, hey, you know, I'm sorry I kind of, like, pushed you too hard, because this film's got kind of, like, the whiplash thing going on, where it's like, you know, to make a diamond, you gotta put, like, coal under, like, an immense amount of pressure kind of deal, where he's basically,
and there's scenes where it cuts to him as a kid, and he's like pushing his son, he's like, come on!
Yeah. And, clearly pushes his son too far to the point where, like, he resented him before he, like, killed his mother, and then that night killed his mother, and obviously that was, like, the straw that broke the camel's back, clearly. But, so, yeah, he basically, Denzel Washington kind of spends his time, like, occasionally he'll, like, kind of try to get close to his son and talk to him, but his son's kind of just like, you know, not having it, so he'll go off and kind of, like, reflect on his past, or he also tries to, like, get some while he's out of prison. He's, like, staying in this, like, motel or hotel, and in the room next door there's, like, this prostitute that he, like, sparks up this relationship with, and she's played by Mila Jovovich, but her character's not in a whole lot of the movie.
I think one of my big issues with this movie as well is, like, she's not in the movie a whole lot, and I don't really think that subplot does anything for the character of Denzel.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of there. Like, it's interesting in concept, but then I don't really think there's ever really a big payoff to it.
In the interview with Spike Lee on this movie that I was watching, he basically explained this plot line. He was basically like, yo, the dude spent 6 years in prison. There's no way he wasn't going to try not to get any. And I guess he felt like it was, like, important to, like, show that, I guess. But
well, yeah, and I don't even mind, like, showing him having a scene where he just, like, goes and sleeps with a prostitute, but to, like, have this weird subplot where he's trying to, like, be this prostitute's, like, girlfriend pretty much, and, like, help her. It's just,
yeah,
I like the idea of it, but I just don't think it goes anywhere.
And we see, like, this just kind of jumping the gun on this, like, B plot that doesn't really go anywhere. We see that, like, by the end of the movie, like, she's like driving away, and you can tell that she's, like, stepped away from her, like, prostitute life, and it's like, so this guy just came along and basically just completely flipped her life, and it just felt like it came out of nowhere. It didn't feel like it was properly, like, built up to be that way. Like, I think we see, like, 1 to 2 scenes where they have a conversation, but it didn't even feel like that was, like, the next natural progression point. Like, beyond that, it just kind of cuts to that, and it's like, oh, okay, sure, why not? But yeah, so we follow Jesus Shuttlesworth. Let's see, dive deeper into this. Like, he stays with, like, his aunt and uncle after, like, the situation between his parents go down, and his uncle's kind of greedy. Like, he's trying to, like, spend Jesus' money before he even has it, and, like, Jesus is, like, made it apparent to, like, everyone around him, and is like, hey, you know, I don't have any money, you know, I'm not rich, and if you guys, like, take these deals, it's kind of like taking the deal on behalf of me, something I haven't agreed to. So, like, there's, like, a point where his uncle, like, gets a car, and he's like, no, dude, take this back. What are you doing? And, like, just basically, like, everyone in his life feels entitled to, like, a slice of the pie. His girlfriend,
his girlfriend's Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
Not only is she cheating on him, but she's also trying to convince him to get, like, an agent so that she can make a bunch of money, pretty much.
Yep. And, there is one scene where, like, it's, like, their breakup scene. And I felt like this was just kind of, like, tossed in there. Like, it didn't feel like... I felt like they could have, like, maybe built this up better. But, like, there's a line where basically, like, she got an abortion, and it's, like, suggested that, like, she did it because she didn't want to ruin his basketball career, and she felt like it was more his decision than it was her decision. So she wanted to get money out of it, basically, because she felt like she just assumed that he was going to be, like, disloyal to her and break up with her in the long run. And it was like, yeah, I felt like that whole, like, Rosario Dawson plotline was, like, super underdeveloped. There's, like, a scene where, like, Denzel goes up to her at one point and confronts her, and that doesn't really go anywhere. It's just kind of there, and it's just...
Yeah, that's, I feel like that's my big issue. Like, I like the base of the story, and I feel like it'd be a good, like, 90-minute movie, but then there's, like, 45 extra minutes of just things that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. But one of the big things that this film kind of, like, has the commentary for is, like, the kind of abuse of, like, high school, college athletes, and just, like, the things, how they're, like, kind of corrupted. They'll be introduced to, like, drugs. They'll intentionally, like, basically, like, they'll sleep around and very easily, like, be introduced to, like, people with, like, HIV or different types of STDs, and, like, stuff like that. And then, yeah, just also, like, the film doesn't really, like, comment too much on it, but the fact that, like, college basketball players, or, like, college, sports players in general don't get paid for what they do. It's like, but yet, like, everyone assumes that he's gonna be, like, rolling in the bank, but he's, like, considering, like, all these different colleges and stuff. But yeah, the real meat of this film kind of, like, sits on the, like, father-son relationship. But even then, I feel like it wasn't super strong. Like, I really wish that they would have had, like, an uncomfortable conversation between the two about, like, the situation that went down with the mother, but they really didn't. It was mostly just kind of focused on, like, the basketball stuff. And it was like, I don't know. I feel like this one's, like, I feel like there's a decent movie in there. Like, I enjoyed watching it, but it wasn't anything, like, profound.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts I watched and I didn't hate it at all, but it's just like, sometimes I get really pissed at movies because I'm like, I can tell there's a good movie in here. It's just, like, muddled within a bunch of bad shit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this movie, like, flopped really badly.
Oh, yeah.
Whoops. Yeah, it's just, like I said, I feel like this movie could work as, like, an hour and a half. I feel like I just want to start, like, editing movies to see if I can make them better.
And I mean, that is, like, a hobby people do.
Yeah.
Doesn't like, Topher Grace edit movies?
Yeah, Topher Grace actually, speaking of Topher Grace, after he was in BlacKkKlansman, he went to go edit a bunch because he was, like, so stressed out after playing such, like, a racist person.
Yeah.
And he edited, like, I want to say he edited the entire Hobbit trilogy or something.
Oh, nice. Huh.
Yeah, but I do like I like the cinematography specifically when they're doing basketball games, especially the last one. I really enjoy. I think it emulates like watching like a sports channel really well, like the framing of a lot of shots, and I don't know, I like that they did that.
Yeah.
But some of the music was really good as well. Mm-hmm. But like overall, I think this was the weakest of the 5 we watched. At least in my opinion. I don't know, maybe you hated Bamboozled. We shall see soon.
Yes. We'll see next.
But I would give this movie a 5 out of 10.
I would give it a 6. Like, I enjoyed it enough on like a kind of service level.
Yeah, I get it. I was close to a 6. I was battling with myself, but yeah.
So a 5.5.
5.5. Not too bad at all.
All right. On to the real meat and potatoes.
Bamboozled.
This is
I guess I'll just say it right now. I personally thought this movie was great, but I can also see why some people would hate this movie.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't really like this movie. Like, I think it's bad from mostly a production and like acting standpoint, and I don't know if it was just because he couldn't like get funding for the film, or if it was like kind of like intentional. I think based off like the acting style of most of the actors in the movie, I'm guessing it was intentional. But
from my interpretation, I think it was intentional. I thought it was intentional, and like it was supposed to. A lot of it reminded me of like reality television around this time. A lot of the framing, and I thought that's what Spike Lee and Ellen Karras, the cinematographer, were trying to do in that. So personally, I liked it because I felt that's what they were going for, but at the same time, I get it. And also the acting very much was intentional. But yeah. I can understand why it's a little much for some people. I personally thought it was great, but yeah, I get it.
I really don't want to say this, but it really reminded me of a Nostalgia Critic episode. Like,
fun fact,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I felt like I was watching a really racist episode of the Nostalgia Critic when I was watching this.
I never got that, but I can get it. I think the Damon Wayans cadence that he was using in that kind of sounds like, I'm the Nostalgia Critic.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like that like fake intellectual voice that Doug will do sometimes in his episodes. But
I was going to say the director of photography, the cinematographer for this, is the same person that shot Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, wow. I would have never guessed that.
That's why I'm saying that I'm almost certain it was intentional.
Yeah.
Because, like, the cinematographer, no matter what kind of camera you have, like, the cinematographer is a good cinematographer.
Yeah. But, yeah, so this film follows Pierre
Delacroix.
Delacroix?
Lacroix.
Okay. Who is Harvard-educated African man in the employment of CNS, a TV network. And basically, he's got a boss named Thomas Dunwitty, who is played by Michael Rappaport, I think is how you pronounce his name.
I think so.
I like this guy. This guy's really funny. Not in this movie, but he's really funny most of the other
I was about to go like, what do you mean he's really funny? He's the worst!
But, yeah, basically, the film begins with him, the Thomas Dunwitty character, kind of like peeling into Pierre because the material Pierre has submitted focuses on, like, the black middle class, and he calls it, like, Cosby clones. He's basically, like, he just rejects it. He's like, you know, I don't want to portray black people in this, like, positive, intelligent manner. Like, that shit's, like, boring. It's not what people want. And then he basically goes on to say a bunch of really racist things. Like, he's basically like, you know, I know, like, black people, you know, they set the trends in this country, and I'm banking on you to, like, make something very, like, you know, ahead of the curve. I want you to make the next big thing. And he goes on to, like, say the N-word a bunch, which Pierre's like, hey, man, can you not, like, use that? And he's like, hey, man, I feel like I have a right to say this. I have, like, a black wife and 2, like, black children. I'm allowed to say the N-word. And he's just like, well, could you not?
just start saying it over and over again.
Yeah, and he's like, could you maybe not say it in front of me? And he's like, nah, man. And he straight up, like, makes a meta reference to, like, his, like, feud with Quentin Tarantino. He's like, fuck what Spike Lee said. I'm with Tarantino all the way. I can use this word as freely as I want. But yeah, he even, like, goes on to, like, insinuate that he's, like, blacker than Pierre. And it's just like, oh god, please stop. But basically Pierre, he's got, like, this.
He wants to be fired. That's the big crux. He's like I don't want to work for this guy. I'm stuck under contract. So he tries to make the worst thing possible so he can be fired.
Yeah, like the producers.
Yeah, but he simply is just like, if I make this concept, I'll be fired.
Yeah. So he pitches it, and surprise, surprise, the network loves it. They're like, oh yeah, this is great. And meanwhile, throughout the course of the film, we've seen that there are these 2, like, street performers that, like, hang out.
Yeah, these 2 homeless street performer guys.
Yeah.
And they're always like, give us a job. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Their names are...
Living color reunion between Tommy Davidson and David Waynes. They were both on that TV show. But, yeah, so... Their names are,
Man Ray and Womack.
Yes. So, basically, you know, every day, like, when Pierre's, like, going up to his office, they ask him, like, hey, man, when are you going to get us a show? And he's like, I'm working on it. So he kind of, like, is like, oh, these guys are perfect for this extremely offensive idea I have. So he brings them up to the office and, like, pitches it to them, and he basically is like, all right, I've got the show in line. He doesn't, like, directly come out and specifically say what it is. He's like, all right, I got the show, but I want you to change your name. He tells Man Ray, he's like, hey, Man Ray, you know, we're going to change your name to Mantan.
Mantan. And he doesn't say what he wants to change Womack's name to until they get to, the fucking, like, endorsement where he, like, shows off the show to Dunwitty. Yeah. And he's like, Man Ray or Mantan and his friend Sleep and Eat.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa.
So basically he pitches, I think the full name of the show is Mantan, the New Millennium Minstrel Show.
Yep.
And yeah, he basically is like, yeah, it's a satire on minstrel shows. It's, you know, we gotta have, like, black actors and blackface, obviously. That way it's, I guess, a degree less offensive, perhaps, maybe.
I mean, that's what they did, after a while. It wasn't, in that, so obviously I watched that documentary as well, and they did that as well. I didn't actually know that, after white people did blackface for a while, there were a lot of black actors that, because they didn't have the right look because of everybody's, like, normalization of this blackface, they had to also use blackface to, like, do anything of, like, value to the white people, pretty much.
Yeah, and they bring that up a little bit later in the film with Jada Pinkett Smith's character, who is Sloane Hopkins. She plays Damon Wayans like assistant. But so basically, yeah, they pitched the show. The network likes it. The two actors kind of confront Pierre. They're like, "Hey, what the hell are we doing?" And
he's like, "It's satire."
Yeah, Womack is clearly a bit more objected to doing this, but he's kind of strapped for cash, so they're both willing to do this show because they're homeless otherwise. So it gets to the point where they start like casting around for other like characters in the show. They have this one character who's like meant to like introduce the show, whose name is Honeycutt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically they hold auditions for like his character, and we see Sloane. There's like a scene earlier where she gets like a visit from her brother, who's part of this like rap group called the Mau Maus. And they like show up to like basically audition for the band. Apparently one of the other bands that comes in auditions for the scene is like The Roots. A fun fact.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, hey, that's The Roots.
But yeah, so they end up giving it to this one guy. Let me see. Thomas Jefferson Bird is the name of the actor. He is only credited as his stage name in the movie. But yeah, so what ends up happening is they put on the pilot, and Pierre's mindset is like, okay, the network's dumb enough to greenlight the pilot, but there's absolutely no way that this will like get picked up. But it's a smash success, and suddenly blackface is the new thing again. So they get picked up for like, I think like 13 episodes or something. They get picked up for like a season. And we see them as like the progression of the show happens. Sloane, she kind of, the longer this goes on, the more disgusted she feels, and she sees like she's got like as much involvement in this as like everyone else, so she kind of like steps away. So does, after a couple episodes, Womack steps away. He's like, I can't do this shit anymore. And we see that Man Ray, he's kind of gotten a bit of like an actor's ego about it, and he doesn't. He's got like this kind of like relationship going on with like Sloane over the course of the movie, and she keeps trying to like educate him on like the history of blackface and what they're doing, and he kind of like, you can tell he kind of wants to stay ignorant. He's like, why are you bringing this stuff up all the time, And she's like, I thought you'd want to know. And he's like, no, I really don't. But basically, like, she ends up stepping away from the project. And finally, after some time in contemplation, Man Ray decides he doesn't want to do the show anymore. And Pierre's like, well, we're in the middle of a shoot right now. You got to go out there. And he's like, fine, but I'm not going to wear my blackface, obviously. He's like, fine, but you're dealing with all the consequences of it. So he goes out there and does like this final show where he's not wearing blackface. And just the general tone of this last show is like, I mean, the tone throughout all of them is like scary, but this one's like a lot more like, you can tell like he's had his fill, like he's not going to do this anymore, and he's kind of repulsed by what he's done. And then the show ends and he is kidnapped by the Mau Maus, who have basically, like, after not getting the gig, and like seeing the show on TV, they're like, oh shit, this is really offensive. We're not going to stand for this. We're going to kill that guy. So they abduct him and
they live broadcast killing him pretty much.
Yeah. And then this leads to Pierre just basically having like a mental breakdown. He gets this like old like piggy bank that's like a blackface.
Yeah, he has a bunch of like blackface, like black themed like antique collectibles, and now they're like coming to life as he's losing his mind.
Yeah, and then Sloane comes in and shoots him, and then she leaves, and he dies. Well, basically, like a collection of blackface clips play, kind of like closing the film down.
Yeah, pretty much every Spike Lee movie ends with a montage, because I feel like a lot of this time his movies act kind of like a documentary in the very last like 2 minutes. He's like, and here's actual things.
Yeah. But yeah, yeah, this film is a rough one to watch. Definitely wasn't my favorite, but
yeah, I felt it was rough for me, but I personally really liked it. I feel like it has a really over-the-top style to it that I feel like is the same reason I like Sion Sono movies and you don't really like them. It's the same reason why I think I really like this movie and you were less enjoying of it.
Yeah.
Just because, like, a lot of this movie is really fucking in your face.
It is. It really is.
Apparently Spike Lee was, like, really, really fucking angry when writing this movie. Which comes out very obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, he said that he felt like a lot of the shows that were on television at the time were basically just they felt like the modern day equivalent to like minstrel shows for him, like that lots of white people will tune into like these shows and kind of just laugh at like the black culture and the aspects of it that they like find funny, and it's kind of like laughing at them. But yeah, this film is very like brash and in your face with its like, or not even like in your face, funny, but it's just
one of the big critical. One of the reasons it didn't do well critically when it first came out is people were like, I think in 2000 people just thought that the world was becoming less racist. And they're like, things like this couldn't happen. And then 20 years later, it's gotten a critical, like, reassessment, and most people were like, yeah, we were wrong about that part.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you were.
Yeah, like, I would say I respect this movie, but I don't like it.
I thought this movie was great, but I also understand why people wouldn't like it. But I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. I really liked this one.
I would give it... I'm bouncing between a 5 and a 6. I'm gonna give it a 6.
Okay.
But
because you're really respected.
Like, I like the underlying themes, and there are things I like about this movie. It just made me extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's a very uncomfortable watch. Okay, so 7 out of 10 average, and let's jump ahead 20 years.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to do more of an arc of years, but then there were movies that I really wanted to include, so I'm like, nah, we're just gonna jump ahead 20 years.
Yeah.
So let's talk about The Five Bloods, which came out very recently.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Here's the synopsis. Watch this. Guys were in Vietnam.
Yes. 5
black soldiers. One of them was killed after they found a boatload of fucking gold. They hide the gold, they bury his body. Jump ahead to fucking present day, and they're going back to Vietnam. They're gonna find the gold again, and they're gonna find their friend's body to take him back so he can be properly buried. Hijinks ensue.
Yes.
Pretty much hijinks ensue, and it ends up with fucking all of them dying, pretty much. Not all of them, but the vast majority of them die.
Yeah. Out of the 6 out of the 5 that go on the journey initially, only 2 of them, come back. So, yes. Basically, Otis, Paul, Eddie, and Melvin, and then their old squad leader who died was named Norman. He's played
Stormin' Norman, Chadwick Boseman.
Yep.
When I saw the trailer for this, I was expecting him to be in the movie a lot more.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen any trailers or anything. I assumed this movie took place like actively during Vietnam, so I was very confused when I started it, and I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna like segue into it, and then it never happened.
And then there's only like 2 or 3 scenes where it's like actively during the Vietnam War.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. So this film was a big surprise to me, and another big surprise is Jonathan Majors was in this movie. I really enjoyed that.
Are you a fan of Jonathan Majors?
I am. He plays the friend in Last Black Man from San Francisco. So I was just like,
oh fuck, that's right. Okay, I was like, where do I know this guy from?
Yeah, so I was really excited to see him in something else, especially a Spike Lee movie. So I was like, oh yeah, awesome. But yeah, let me see if I can find out if it lists the original intended cast. I think it does on the page. Oh yes, so the film was originally intended to have Samuel Jackson, Giancarlo Esposito, Don Cheadle, and John David Washington, but they were all like just kind of wrapped up in other things, so they went with the cast of this movie, and I feel like that worked out for the most part. I felt like there was one role in particular where I was like, I wasn't really feeling this guy, but
who was that?
It was the rich one.
Norm Lewis is Eddie.
Yes, and I don't think he necessarily did a bad job. He just didn't feel... So him and, who was the other one? So Otis is the one with the daughter, Eddie's the rich one. Which one was Delroy Lindo playing?
He was Paul.
Okay, so I felt
who was David's dad.
Yeah, so I felt like Eddie and Melvin were both kind of like a little undercooked in terms of their characters, but jumping ahead to like some spoilers here, but the scene where like,
well, I already said everyone dies. We're already
yeah. So the scene where like Eddie like steps on the landmine and like you see like his body, I thought that scene
was dumb.
Was a little dumb, and also like just the performance was a little corny, and so were like the effects on like his like blown up body, like that whole like part where like it just cuts to him and he's like kind of like flailing around without his arms or bottom half was just a little goofy for me, and I felt like he didn't really give much of a great performance like leading up to that either. Like it felt a little stilted, but he was the only one that I was like not very, like I felt like they could have maybe perhaps casted better, or perhaps given him a little more to do and given him more time to like shine. But yes, for the most part I really like the casting of this movie. Delroy Lindo does a fucking job in this movie. He kills it. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Holy shit.
He's kind of the worst. His character's kind of the worst, but
yes.
he's great.
Yes. Yeah, so basically we see the 4 of them are like at this restaurant in Vietnam, and they're like they just returned to the area and they're kind of catching up, and we basically find out that Paul had voted for Trump. And the rest of them were like, oh, whoa, what the fuck, why'd you do that? And the whole, like...
They fucking go, oh yeah, you were the guy, grinning at the fucking front of the... And they cut to a real-life footage of that. That was funny.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, we see that he's kind of, like, racist towards Vietnamese people. Like, there's, like... And obviously, like, a bit of it stems from his PTSD, but it's still there. There's a point where, like, this, like, one-legged kid comes up and is kind of, like, asking for money, and he's kind of, like, at the point where he can't take it anymore. He's like, hey, get that kid out of here right now. And there's another point where, their, like, translators, or not their translator, their tour guide shows up. And there's a couple guys who are, like, down at the bar, like, staring at him, and it's making him very uneasy. And then we find out that they just, like, bought drinks for them at the table and wanted to, like, welcome them back to Vietnam. But yeah, so basically, this kind of, like, first part of the film, we're kind of just getting to know these characters, getting to know, like, what they're doing. Otis, we see he has this old friend who used to be a prostitute. But basically, she's got, like, this connection, so, like, when they find the gold, he'll, like, help, like, convert it to cash and help them out
John
with it.
Reno. Or
Yep.
Jean Reno.
Yep.
He's getting old.
He is getting old.
Looked pretty old in this movie, but...
Yeah.
He is, like, 71, so...
Yeah. But basically, there's, like, this huge point where, like, Paul's character is like, yo, fuck you, man. Without us, you wouldn't have won World War II. And it just kind of shows his ignorance. It's just like, oh, man, you were taught the American Orthodox, like, history. Not even that, like... Fuck, even in, like, a basic high school education, like, they taught you, like, that the Allied forces were very important. Like, it wasn't just America. That was just, like, such, like, an ignorant thought. But he basically, like, really offends this guy, and there's, like, this huge, like, level of distrust in between, like, Jean Reno's character and these men. Particularly Paul, but they just kind of... They acknowledge that they have to kind of have, like, faith in that the other side won't, like, screw them. And we also find out that Otis, when he's meeting up with, his friend, whose name I did not catch. Let me see if they list it.
The girl, or?
Yes.
The prostitute?
Yeah,
or
Otis's.
Hanoi Hana, I believe.
Yes. So, we see that she has a black daughter, and it leads to this scene where, like, Otis is, like, awkwardly like, yeah.
Is that mine?
Yeah. And she's like, yeah. But don't worry about that right now. Like, we made it just fine without you thus far, yada yada. But basically, yeah, so that'll come back around later. But yeah, so we see them go out. Jonathan Major's character, David, he plays the son of Paul. There's this bit where we see he kind of, like, shows up in Vietnam, and he basically, like, blackmails them into, like, letting him go with. And at first you're like, oh man, what a fucking piece of shit. But you see that he kind of has, like, an ulterior motive which is to kind of keep tabs on his father.
Yeah.
Because his father is, out of all of them, the one with like the worst. Yeah, he's a bit of a psychopath, and he's also got like the worst case of PTSD out of all of them. Like they've all got it, like, but his case is like
his is super bad. And you're kind of the whole time you're like, well, why? Like what? And then you're like, oh.
Yeah,
it reveals why later on.
I kind of realized, I'm like, I think this is what happened about, like, on the scene on the boat where he was like, where they're like, we all like see Otis, and he's like, no, not like me. I'm like, oh, this guy did something. Spoiler alert. Might as well talk about it at this point.
Yeah, we're just like this is a new format. We're just talking about things.
So
he's the one that killed him. It was obviously an accident, but what happens is they were in like the fuselage of a crashed plane fighting these Vietnamese soldiers, and one of them, like the Viet Cong, one of them went through like the back entrance and like snuck up on them. And they, like, got to her in time, but Paul, like, did a spraying motion because he was freaking out, and he hit both her and Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah. And it was there that Norman died. And basically he's kept this to himself over, like, all these years and hasn't, like, properly, like, told anyone or just worked it out with anyone. So he's just been, like, building up these, like, feelings of guilt over these years, which have manifested in this really gnarly case of PTSD. But so basically, the son's like, I'll tell the authorities if you don't allow me to come along and take a bit of the gold. So they're like, fuck. Fine, you can split Paul's gold, but you're not getting like a full share. So, so they eventually get to the point where they're like getting into the jungle. I feel like this is important. There's a scene in a bar that they have where they, David meets, Hetty, who is, this French
last
woman.
Name?
Hetty Bouvier? I don't know how you.
Let me read.
Yeah, I'm just going with like the
Bouvier, I believe.
Yeah, I was going with the Simpsons pronunciation because that's Marge's last name before she married Homer. Marge Bouvier.
Oh.
Yeah, but yes. So they kind of have a discussion, and we meet her friends. Basically, she feels responsible for like her ancestors. Basically, like they ran like I forget what kind of plantation it was, but they ran like a plantation in like Vietnam back in the day, and they're like responsible for like a lot of like the landmines that are around. So she wants to like kind of do her part and like kind of clean those up. So she found this organization that's like dedicated to like going and finding these landmines and taking care of them so no one accidentally like gets fucked up. Which will come full circle because basically they go into the jungles. They get there. Their tour guide parts with them. He's basically like, I wish you guys would let me come along. I feel like it would be safer, but I guess I'll just meet you on the other side in a few days. And I really like their tour guide. He's
a good character.
Yeah, they make a lot of like kind of racist comments in front of him, but he kind of just like rolls with a lot of it. He's just like, okay, I kind of get what they're coming from, so I'm not gonna like just be like super like in their face about it, but he tries to stay a good spirit throughout this whole thing, and they drag him through a lot of shit. And he stays. And
he's like, I'm here. I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Good guy.
I really like his actor too. I want to see if he's in like some other stuff.
Yeah, no, I was really interested.
Apparently, he's like a martial arts choreographer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Apparently he did some decent amount of stuff for The Protector. I don't know if you've heard of The Protector. It's a Tony Jaa movie. I've been meaning to watch it for a while.
No.
Tony Jaa, maybe? I'm not sure. Tony, he's one of, like, the big, like, martial arts guys right now, along with, like, Eco-Wise.
Okay. I'm looking at his body of work right now. This is the only thing I have seen him in or recognize the title of. Oh, I guess I've heard of Cradle to the Grave, but I haven't seen it. But yes, anyway. So they go...
he's a stuntman in Spider-Man 2.
Wait, what?
He was a stuntman in Spider-Man 2.
Oh, shit. Fuck, that's not on the Wikipedia
page
that I'm looking at, but that's badass. Like,
he played
Spider-Man 2, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, good.
I don't know what he did in it, but yeah, he did stunt work for Spider-Man 2 and Jarhead. I've heard of Jarhead.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. But yeah, so basically, they go out. We get this nice scene where they sing like a Marvin Gaye song. The What's Happening, Brother. I like that song. And then we see that Otis has this Oxycontin prescription. And everyone's like, "Ooh, man, what are you doing?" He's like, "Hey, I'm a doctor. I know what I'm doing. Chill." Or he's not a doctor, but he was like a medic back in the war. But so yeah, so basically he's like, "You know what? Fine," and he like dumps out all the pills right there, and he's like, "I don't need this shit." And I thought that was going to be like a more prevalent like plot point, but it really wasn't. So, but it does. The Oxycontin does pop its head back up again. It's just not quite in the way I was expecting. But so basically, yeah, they're going through. They find the gold. There's like a night where they like camp, and they find that Otis has also brought a gun, and they're like, what the fuck? Why didn't you, like, tell the rest of us? We would have, like, brought a gun, too. And he's like, it was given to me. I don't think we'll need it, yada, yada. And basically, there's, like, this huge, like, argument about it. Actually, like, a full-on, like, near fight. But they end up deciding to leave the gun with
Paul.
Paul. And
give it to Paul.
The second they did that, I sighed. I'm like, I know that this is gonna be like a plot relevant thing. This was the stupidest fucking decision they could have fucking made. Like, I wish, like, God, it just, like, at that point, like, it just feels like lazy film writing. Like, not saying that Spike Lee's like a lazy film writer, or that this film even has like lazy writing, but that one aspect just really just upset me. It's like, no one in their right mind would give that guy a gun. Ugh.
Yeah.
So they give him the gun, and then the next day they find the gold. It's like spread out, but they end up like tracking it all down. And then Eddie and Paul end up having this like argument over like what to do with the money, because Norman back in the day said that like he wanted to use the money for like black liberation, but Paul's like, I'm gonna liberate me, that's what I want, and basically like there's disagreement amongst the group. But then, they're basically like, fuck arguing about it. Let's go find Norman. And they go and they find Norman. And this scene was extremely emotional. I was tearing up a little bit. Like, it was a pretty sad scene. Like, they find his body, and they like pull up the tags and confirm it's him, and it's just sad. And they're like, this time we're we're not leaving you behind. You're coming home with us this time. And it was just like, oh, shit. But, yeah, so shortly after that, as they're basically, like, heading back towards the gold, they're kind of, like, arguing again. And then Eddie's basically like, oh, fuck, man. Like, I can't believe I thought, like, we would be, like, the Bloods again, but we're not. Like, things are different now. And he ends up, like, stepping on a landmine and spontaneously just blowing up. And
then he has he's just a chest and a head, and he's dying, and then he dies.
Yep. And meanwhile, while Paul, Otis, and Melvin are kind of checking up on him, David steps on a landmine, and I think this part's kind of dumb too, because it's like someone just steps on a landmine and he goes and he's kind of like pacing a bit in the back, and then he ends up stepping on it, and it's just like, why? Like, clearly this is an area where there are active landmines. Why would you walk around?
The setup for that was pretty rough, but I thought the execution of the scene was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I thought this the Hetty shows up.
Yep.
With her crew, which the guy who plays Simon, he's been getting some pretty big roles recently.
Yeah, I've seen him in stuff, but
he's in Richard Jewell. He's in BlacKkKlansman.
Oh, yeah, he plays that racist cop, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's
no, I don't think he's a racist cop. I think he's part of the KKK. I think.
Yeah,
I gotta rewatch that movie.
Yeah, he is. He's the one with the, like, wife who ends up trying to, like, deliver that bomb to the mailbox. I remember now. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, basically, yeah, they show up and they're like, okay,
they don't really know what to do, because they can, like, they find them and disarm, but they can't really do anything because he's already stepped on it. So what they do is they tie a rope around him, and on 3, they pretty much, like, all 8 of these, or 7 of these people just, like, fucking tug him.
Yeah.
And he's alive.
Yep, and immediately Paul decides to repay them by helping save his son by pointing a gun at him and forcing David to tie them up. And, yeah, this is the point of the film where I was like, ugh, I don't really like the direction this is going. I feel like it eventually, like, pulls itself back around, but there's a point around this point of the film where I was like, why did they give him the gun?
Yep.
So it's just, everyone looks like an asshole because no one's really standing up to, Paul, and then later they end up, like, getting the gun from him, but it's still, like, a fucked situation, and they eventually work their way out of the jungle. Vin's waiting for them, but, they are immediately greeted. I guess, what was that guy's name? Simon? No, not Simon.
Seppo.
Yeah, so, Seppo ends up, like, escaping at an earlier point, and then he gets dragged back with, like, this group of, like, mercenaries who are posing as, like, law enforcement, but
later on we realize that they're actually just working with DeRoche, who is John Reno's character.
Yep. So, yeah, so basically, they're like, we're gonna just take the gold, and then they're like, we can share the gold, and it's like, no, this is our gold, we're taking it, which leads to conflict. Seppo ends up, like, running away, and he steps on a landmine and blows up. So basically they take out, like, the majority of the mercenaries that showed up. One gets away, however.
Pretty much the like, leader of them. He gets away.
So basically, David was also shot in the leg, so they're taking care of that. And basically, Paul takes, like, his half of the gold, and he's basically like, fuck you guys. You're all...
He's not my son, he's a backstabber.
Yeah, you all betrayed me. I'm leaving. And he goes off into the jungle by himself. Meanwhile, Vin and the rest of the crew decide to go to this, it's like a temple that's, like, down the road.
Yeah.
So they go there and they, like, hold up, expecting, like, all-out warfare. So David and Hetty are, like, just kind of chilling inside the temple. They get left with a gun. Otis gives David some of his Oxycontin, because there's a point, like, earlier where I think it was Melvin who gave Otis back his Oxycontin. And I was like, oh, okay. I wonder when you picked that up, but sure. But yeah, so he gives it to David here, and yeah, basically, Otis, or not Otis, Paul is out in the woods, or out in the jungle. He gets bit by a snake and loses the gold on, like, this high up branch when he, like, falls down a hill, and basically kind of wanders on his own, and he ends up seeing Norman. And
pretty much like the ghost or the vision of Norman, yeah.
Yeah. And Norman basically tells him it's all right. He forgives him. He understands it was an accident, and to, like, basically, like, let go of every, like, thing he's been holding inside all of these years. And
that's when it's revealed, like, that's when they show the events of that plane and stuff.
And then you can see that Paul has found some sort of inner peace with himself. But this is cut short when we see, like, basically, without even, like, seeing the scene where it happens, we see that he's been found by the mercenaries, and they're making him dig his own grave, and yeah, he sings and gets shot and dies there. And, like, this whole, like, sequence, like, between, like, right before he sees Norman to, like, the point where he dies, it's just, like, excellent acting. He gives, like, such a great performance. But yeah, so then we cut back to the main group, and the mercenaries, like, show up, and they start firing on the place, and the Bloods, they do a pretty good job wiping most of them out. Jean Reno's character is still, like, running around by the end of it, and he ends up, like, tossing a grenade that Melvin ends up, like, jumping on and sacrifices himself to stop, and then Otis gets shot.
Otis had just been shot, and then the grenade was thrown right next to where Otis was, and Melvin. That's when Melvin throws himself so that Otis doesn't die.
Yeah.
So Otis literally just watches his friend die, like, get exploded right next to him.
Yeah. So Jean is about to, like, kill Otis, but then David shoots him from inside the temple, and yeah, so they survive. They split the gold accordingly. We see that basically Seppo, Simon, and Hetty's cut all go towards her foundation for, like, finding the landmines. We see that Eddie's cut goes to the Black Lives Matter movement. Melvin's cut goes to his family. Otis gets his cut, and he goes and he kind of, like, reunites with his daughter. Paul goes back to teaching. Or not Paul. David goes back to teaching. And we see that, like, Vin probably put his money, like, towards his company.
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, we basically this whole, like, ending bit where we see, like, everyone and what they like put their money towards is all read out by a letter that Otis gives to David from Paul. And it was basically written before the trip. And it was supposed to be given to him, like, in case, like, he dies, which he did.
Because he didn't expect Paul to come.
Yeah.
Or he didn't expect whatever his son's name was to come.
David.
David, yeah.
Yeah, so... reads this letter where basically, like, Paul apologizes for, like, basically not loving him. There's another point that we kind of, like, skipped over where we find out that, like, David, his birth killed his mother. So that was, like, on top of all of Paul's other trauma that just fed into, like, Paul basically, like, not showing his son, like, any love while he was growing up. And he basically, like, apologizes for it, and in the letter states, like, you know, despite all my problems deep down, you know, I love you. And, yeah. This film's,
I don't know, this film was kind of rough for me.
Yeah, there are bits that I really like about this one.
Yeah.
But there are some low points that I feel like really hold this one back.
I felt like it's interesting because I think from the production angle, this movie's really good. There's some really good stuff. I really like how the modern scenes were shot digitally and the 1960s sequences were all shot on 16 millimeter. Mm-hmm. And it switched between aspect ratios. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it looked really nice.
I thought it was kind of neat that they had the past version of themselves played by, like, the current day actors. Like, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because I think it really felt like it was like they were thinking back on that time and they just think of themselves as they are now. Mm-hmm. While the only way they can imagine Chadwick Boseman was how he is now. Like, how that's all they ever knew Stormin' Norman to be. He never got to live longer. I really like that. But I just think that the writing I thought was uncharacteristically pretty bad. At least at parts. Like, there is some good stuff. I really like the scenes between Paul and David, and I like Vin as a character. But Otis, Eddie, and Melvin I thought were all pretty, like, underdeveloped, which is shocking because the movie's like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, this is
Otis less so. Otis had something going for him, but like even then, I didn't feel like outside of like, oh, I have a daughter, he really had much of a character.
Yeah.
I also didn't really like the first action scene, the one that like was in Vietnam, I thought was really bad.
I agree. I
was like, uh-oh.
I was like, oh man, this is some
but
really
then the
bad.
last few action scenes I thought were like really well done.
Yeah, much better compared to that first one.
Maybe not the last one was good, but I really like the one where they first are like being attacked by those Vietnamese like mercenaries.
Yeah, when they come out of the jungle.
Right before Seppo. Yeah, I really like that action scene. I thought that one was really good, but the first one I thought was like actively bad.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
It's just, I did end up liking the movie, and I think that a lot of it comes down to how good Delroy Lindo is in it, but I just didn't like a lot of the writing. And this movie felt like it was 2 hours and 40 minutes or like 35 minutes, but like it both felt like a lot of things should have been added and a lot of things just didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
It was a weird one for me. Like, I liked it, but I was expecting to go into love it because like it's been getting a lot of praise, and it's just like, no, this wasn't great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like this movie, but I feel generally the same about it. Like, I pretty much let all like my gripes be known as I was like kind of talking about it throughout, but yeah, some of the characters were undercooked. Not all the performances in it were like the best. Yeah,
and honestly, I feel like most of that comes down to the script for it. Like, there's not, like, there wasn't a lot for Norm Lewis or Clark Peters to really, or like Isaiah Whitlock Jr. Like, they couldn't really do anything because their roles were just kind of nothingness to me.
Yeah. It really...
it honestly just felt like they were cannon fodder at times.
Yeah. Really.
Which is unfortunate because I really like the themes of this movie, and I think the movie in general looks fantastic a lot of the times. But
yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I really have much more to say about this one.
What would you give this one?
Probably a 7.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 6. I liked it, but you know, it's just a little rough for me. 6.5 though, still a good movie. I would still recommend it, and I think most people would probably like it a little more than me. Just some of those, that writing, a lot of the writing just really bothered me. Do you have a ranking of the movies we watched today?
I wrote your ranking, and I've got my own personal ranking. So
okay, I've forgotten what your scores are, so I'm just gonna guess. Bamboozled bottom. He Got Game next. This Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Powerful.
My initial guess for you was I figured Malcolm would be your top. I figured this might be your second. Do the Right Thing would be your third. He Got Game, and then Bamboozled would be like your bottom.
So mine was Malcolm X top, Do the Right Thing second, Bamboozled third, Da 5 Bloods fourth, and He Got Game fifth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I have any other notes, because I did write some notes. I was watching a commencement speech that he did in like 2016, and he's like, there are 2 words that are in almost every single film I have ever made. Wake up. And I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
Because that goes pretty well into the themes of his films. Like, he just wants to educate people about, like, class and race consciousness, and people are like, it's so controversial! I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting and very sad that a lot of people are turned off. Like, a lot of people in movie circles, too, they're like, they'll remember Spike Lee for his Old Boy. And I'm like, that's really unfortunate. Because he's made so many other good things. And I can't help but feel that a lot of directors of color, they'll be like more targeted for their bad movies than their good ones. Like, it happened with Ava DuVernay as well. She did the documentary like The 13th, which is I still haven't seen it, but it's like critically acclaimed. Everyone's like, this is like the greatest documentary ever. Selma was supposed to be really good. And then she made fucking Wrinkle in Time, and that's all anyone talks about now. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, people can make bad movies, but, like, and you can talk about their bad movies, but I feel like a lot of these directors, that's all they're remembered for now. And that's very unfortunate, because Spike Lee, although some of these movies weren't my favorites, like, he has genuine passion, and I really like his directing style.
Yeah, same here. And I look forward to his future projects. I know he's, I don't know if this is his next project necessarily, but I know he's been, assigned to a biopic of Frederick Douglass, which I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch some more Spike Lee movies.
Yeah, there's a couple more I want to check out for sure. Yeah, I want to check out that, The 4 Little Girls, Jungle Fever, what's that one he did with Denzel that's like a bank robbery movie?
Inside Man. I've heard Inside Man's fucking lit.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I want to.
I almost picked Inside Man, but I'm like, I feel like that's not as relevant to like what I wanted this episode to be about.
Yeah, I feel it. But yeah, Spike Lee's a good director. Go check out some of his movies.
Yeah. He's a short little man, but he has a lot of passion.
Yeah.
So, starting from now, we're going to try to do our episodes a little more themed. A little, just so the movies we talk about are a little more connected somehow. Like, it doesn't matter how, just somehow. So, it doesn't just feel like we're just talking about two random-ass movies.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, you wanted to do something, right?
Yeah. Do you want to do what we discussed last week, or do you want to perhaps take a mystery episode?
I'm always going to pick mystery.
Oh, God, you shouldn't have. Okay, we're watching Buffalo 66 and the Brown Bunny.
You wanted me to pick that, Thomas. You know I'm going to say yes to mystery.
Yeah.
Alright, so these are both by Vincent Gallo, right?
Yes. So,
and are they related? Like, are they sequels or anything? Or
no. They're, to my understanding, they're the only two feature-length films he ever did, and there's some, like, similarities between them. He's the star of both of them. Think of it as, like, a mini director deep dive, just focusing on, like, two feature films.
What's Promises Written in Water?
I don't know if that's a feature. I know he's got, like, some, like, short documentary stuff he's done. But...
okay, cool. So
yeah.
you love Buffalo 66, right? You really enjoy that movie?
I've seen it once. I remember really enjoying it, but then I watched Brown Bunny afterwards, and it made me question some of the things Buffalo 66 I like.
Because, so, just looking at my letterbox, the Brown Bunny, I see multiple scores by friends of either 1 star, half a star, or 5 out of 5. Seems like a very divisive film here.
Yeah. Watch. We're gonna, like, go into it, and you're gonna be like, I love this movie. And I'm gonna be like, I don't. Which makes for good...
Oh, fuck, wait, Brown Bunny is the one that Roger Ebert, he fucking said, I will one day be thin, but Vincent Gallo will always be the director of the Brown Bunny.
Yeah, no, I love that quote from him, because Vincent Gallo basically got upset and called him fat. It's like, well, yeah, maybe, but...
Cool, so that's what we'll be looking at next week, and then I'll probably pick something funky for us to do afterwards. So cool, thanks everybody for watching another epic episode of Screen Weens. We'll talk to you all later, bye!
Adios.